Here.
Miguel Arredondo.
Here.
Margie Villalpando.
Here.
John McLaughlin.
Here.
Lupe Costilla.
I'm here, Clem, but I'm not sure for how long. I'm not feeling well.
Okay. Kathy Hansen. I guess she hasn't joined us yet. So we'll start with 6 board members and 1 to join us later when she can get on. Welcome to our September 21st meeting, regular board meeting. I declare we have quorum. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the American and the Texas flags. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. We're going to begin with our public forum. We have 1 letter and 2 speakers. I'm going to read a letter that was sent to us. I only have initials on this person. Was not able to get the full name, but the last name is Mosby, J.S. Mosby. Ms. Cantu, due to health concerns, I am unable to attend the school board meeting on 9/21. I ask that you read the following letter to voice a concerning matter regarding a member of your board. Madam President and esteemed school board members, this introduction will seem unrelated to business, but it relates to a member of this board. In July of 2020, an Antifa account by the handle of Antifa Leets was created to coordinate terrorist activities within the city of San Marcos. A mere 1 month later, the account had approximately 40 followers, one of which was a board member, Arredondo, who conversed with the account on August 9, 2020. Arredondo thanked the Antifa account for its support in a thread where they conversed back and forth. This Antifa account has endorsed the fighting police who are arresting individuals, called those to support San Marcos police, bootlickers, and repeatedly stated the mantra, all cops are bastards, in parentheses, ACAB. The account also claims to organize intimidation tactics targeting people in your neighborhood who are of the right and endorsed homemade spike strips as a means to stop vehicles. In a statement dated May 31st, 2020, the Attorney General of the United States noted Antifa as a group investigating violence and domestic terrorism in American cities. Why is Mr. Arredondo a member of this board who uses his Twitter account to disseminate information and on SMCISD operations openly consorting with the likes of these domestic terrorists? A common rebuttal is typically Antifa is anti-fascism. Aren't you against fascism? This argument needs only look at their paramilitary-like tactics utilized in Portland and Seattle over the past few months, where they have shut down roads, used homemade explosives against police officers, pulled people from their vehicles, and bullied city leadership from their homes. Members of the board, I ask you, why is Mr. Arredondo able to operate as a member of this board following his drunk driving accident and correspondence with this extremist organization? His behavior is undignified example for our children, and his actions call into question his ability to lead in this district. Respectfully, J.S. Mosby. Mr. Arredondo, did you have a response?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Cantu. Per Robert's Rules of Order, as a point of personal privilege, I just wanted to thank ISD staff for their work to try and verify whether or not that commentor was anonymous or not, or an actual person. And I understand that it was read into the record under the assumption that they were real. But for those of you who are not able to see the email, the original email originated from a J.S. Mosby 2020. And as the November election quickly approaches, I would just like to remind my colleagues, ISD staff and employees, and even the community watching live or a recording of tonight's meeting, that As the noise of the upcoming election gets louder, that I remain continued and focused to a safe reopening of our ISD schools. Thank you, Ms. Cantu.
Thank you, Mr. Arredondo. Our second public comment is from Andrea Perez. Andrew, have you let her into the Zoom meeting?
Yes, ma'am. She's joining right now.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Cantu, she should be in the board meeting if you would want to announce her name.
We will hear from Andrea Perez, one of our teachers from, I think, Hernandez. I'm not seeing her.
I'm muted. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. My name is Andrea Perez. I'm a 5th grade bilingual teacher representing myself and hopefully many of my fellow teachers. I just wanted to say that as we get ready to reopen, I want to remind the board about the importance of making sure that we are taking care of our teachers. Effective teaching with good differentiation will not occur with frustrated, angry, hopeless, sad, or stressed teachers. Asking us to teach online, perform all the duties that come with that, and teach in person is not the most effective method for instruction, in my opinion, especially for the students that are staying at home. I ask you to explore the options to amalgamate our team, to pull resources from other areas such as district coaches, interventionists, and whoever is available to help with the online platform, at least for the elementary level, as we get ready for our kids to come back. I believe this would be a great time to bring in some substitute teachers to facilitate the in-person instruction if we do not have enough time, if we do not have enough people to help as well. If assigning specific people to perform the online teaching is not feasible, I encourage the board to keep our schools closed until further notice. Teachers are finally learning how to navigate their lives while teaching online. Teaching in person and online simultaneously will only add to the already tripled work that we have. Again, I'm here to remind you to keep the health of our teachers at the top of the list and to think of ways to help as we transition to our new plan by providing someone to teach the students who choose to stay at home. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Next, we will hear from Andrew Fay. Mr. Fernandez, have you let him into the meeting?
They were in the waiting room, and now I don't see them in the waiting room. I don't know if they left the meeting or not.
I don't think I had a letter from him to read because I thought he was going to be with us. So he was waiting to speak and he's gone?
He's back in.
He's back in?
We just let him in right now.
Thank you. Mr. Fay, would you please identify yourself?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Sorry, I just got on here. What do you need from me? I just was able to log in.
Name and address.
My name is Andrew Fay. I live at 2101 West McCarty Lane in San Marcos.
Okay, you're on.
Okay. I'll be brief. I just want to thank everybody for all the hard work. I know it's extremely unprecedented and there's no roadmap to what we're doing, but I did want to just take a minute to voice my support for going back in person on October 5th. I don't have a lot of time to discuss really why. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood where I stand. Not that I'm anybody important, but I'm just a normal citizen here trying to make ends meet. And the online learning has been less than satisfactory for us, and it's something I don't think we're going to be able to sustain in our house. So that's all I really wanted to say. And again, thanks. I know everybody's doing the best they can.
Is that it, Mr. Fay?
That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll proceed with our superintendent's report.
Madam President, members of the board, thank you and good evening. At this time, I'm going to turn my presentation over to first Mr. Wozniak, and then followed by Mr. Hubenak, who will give you a little bit of update where we are from one. There were some questions for Mr. Wozniak, and then two, Mr. Hubenak has, I think, some things that the board and the community would like to hear.
Good evening, President Cantu, members of the board, and Superintendent Cardona. I have just a one slide summary that I'll show you. If Andrew, if you can get that up, please. Okay, so this is just kind of a quick update as we approach quickly for these next 2 weeks. First, the last of our PPE is going to be delivered this week. The majority of the PPE went out about a month ago, but we're going to deliver the student masks. The students are getting one gaiter, one cloth mask, and one face shield, so we're going to have those delivered this week, and then we're delivering all of thermometers to the front offices this week. They've all had thermometers, but if you remember, we ordered one per teacher. And so we've kind of been holding on to those. So we're going to deliver the lot of those this week. Last of the vinyl should be installed this week. If you've been on any of our campuses, Andrew did a great job of designing and purchasing vinyl for the floors and all the signage that we had custom made. The 4,000 trifold dividers are in, and they'll be delivered this week. Mr. Wyatt is hard at work doing custom dividers this week and last week, and he'll continue to build those custom tabletop dividers. We're finishing up some in-house protocol meetings this week, and by that I mean we're meeting with groups like nurses, front office staff, PE teachers, just to customize some things that are unique to those groups. We've begun routing literally Friday and today for transportation. And then we just finished up all of our mass communication flow charts, our student mapping that guides us through the COVID process. We've got our tracing forms done. And this Thursday, we're going to go ahead and have a tabletop exercise, which is going to be a simulation where we take an elementary school and a secondary school, and we will simulate an example or a situation that has to do with COVID, and then we'll walk through that from beginning to end verbally with everybody's role and what that looks like, and we'll record that for the people that can't make it for the rest of the district, so that they can all kind of have a how-to of how everything is going to be pulled together. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you.
Ms. Cantu, I had a question.
Yes, Mr. Redondo?
I also have a question.
Thank you. Mr. Wozniak, I had two questions in particular regarding the metrics we're using to reopen our schools or to make any decisions after the reopening of our schools. What parameters has the ISD set in that regard? I mean, what community threshold are we going to meet or achieve that we say, okay, it's safe to open our schools in October, and subsequently, what threshold do we need to prevent from meeting or reaching in which we say, okay, we're scaling back our ISD reopening or we're closing schools? And also, in regards to classroom capacity, what does that look like for ISD teachers? Are all of our classrooms the same size? Are they all going to meet the same requirements? Again, what thresholds are we using for that?
So the biggest metric that we've used is working with the local health department, and that is the San Marcos case count and the growth from our city, and looking at trends, looking at trends up or trends down. And so right now, the city is looking at approximately about 18 a day, and there's no consistent up or down. So we don't have this huge spike up. We don't have this huge spike down. So it's been relatively stable. We look at hospital rates. Right now, there's 12 hospitalizations in the city of San Marcos. So that's a really good number too. Going off, I guess capacity wise, as you know, TA did not give us any guidelines as far as capacity in a room. And I can't really answer as far as, square footage of rooms. That would be a maintenance question. But what the principals are tasked with doing, obviously, is to balance classes so that you don't have, obviously, 15 in one room and 7 in another, unless it's a secondary classroom where that schedule does not allow that. But at the elementary level, I know that what you start off with elementary, just from a physical standpoint, is you space your desks apart, right, 6 feet without anything, and that will get you roughly 12. And then as you begin to add dividers, now you have a capacity of more like 15, 16, 17 based on 4x4 dividers and the trifold tabletop dividers. I'm sorry, Mr. O'Donnell, what was the second one?
So I guess the math.
When the year starts?
Yes.
So as far as when the year starts, one of the metrics that that Dr. Reese Mills has put into one of her plans, and I don't remember if she was talking about that tonight or that was the one submitted to TEA. One of the thresholds we look at is cases per classroom, and then we look at a percentage of cases per the school, and then we look at how many of those schools meet that criteria for the district. So for example, if you get 3 cases in one room, that's kind of a threshold to start looking at what do we need to do with that room. 10% of the entire campus is another threshold that we look at to decide whether those discussions should begin about, shutting down that particular school. And then when you have 2 to 3 of those campuses that meet 10%, then you look at how the district will react and respond. So we have those metrics in our plan that we've sent to TEA. And so that's when we get started, that'll be some of the key numbers that we'll look at is per room, per campus, and then per district.
And this one follow-up, Ms. Cantu. So are there automatic thresholds, or is everything just kind of contingent on a conversation taking place at a future date?
The one threshold that you tend to look at times, right, is how your positivity rate is doing. Unfortunately, we don't have any faith in that number right now. So, and that's going off the health department in our county. Negative test results do not go to our health department. They go to the state, and the state subsequently weeks later gets them to Hays County. And so those numbers fluctuate so much that we really don't have a really good grip on what our positivity rate is. So the main one that our health department goes with is if you look on that Hays County dashboard, and you look under San Marcos and you look at the cases per day and how they fluctuate, that's been kind of the key for us and for the health department to go off of, is those numbers right there.
Okay. So just again to confirm, there is no exact number that would trigger a campus closure or a classroom closure or an ISD closure. It's all dependent on numerous conversations at various levels taking place and making a decision that is deemed in the best interest of the ISD and campus and classroom, correct?
Correct, but with the understanding of the thresholds are set in place for looking at a classroom as far as 3 positive cases, 10% of a campus, and then subsequently those campuses throughout the district. If we have 3 10%, then we look at shutting down. So yes, it is a lot of conversation, but we do have things in place that are thresholds to look at shutdown.
Okay, and then my last statement, Ms. Cantu, on this topic is I'm going to request as an individual trustee that we can see what the projected classroom allotments are going to be prior to the district reopening. So we've requested similar information when the board enacted an elementary size classroom cap, seeing an actual census of each classroom and how many students were going to be in there on the start of school and subsequently several weeks into the school year. So similarly, prior to the opening of the ISD and in-person instruction, I would like to see what those projections are on a breakdown classroom per classroom, just so that my colleagues on the board and myself can be cognizant of what those capacities look like. And I understand that there's going to be physical distancing and dividers and all of that. But again, I would like to see that actual census and a breakdown per individual classroom, and not averages, but an actual breakdown for each classroom from pre-K all the way to 12th grade at San Marcos High School.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
I had a couple.
Ms. Halsey?
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Wozniak. That was super helpful. And I did have a chance to be on a campus last week and saw the vinyls, and they're terrific. So great job, Mr. Fernandez. I have a few questions though. So one, are we going to be providing N95 masks to teachers or students?
N95 masks will go to the nurses.
Only to the nurses?
Yes, ma'am.
And then you mentioned the thermometers and that the teachers would have those. So are teachers screening every student that comes into the classroom every day?
No, ma'am. Originally, remember, as you know, we've talked multiple times in these meetings how things have changed so often, right? At one point, we had TA guidance and CDC that, you know, the checks throughout the morning with the teachers were what we should be doing. And all of a sudden, TA came out in the summer and said, we don't recommend doing checks for asymptomatic people, but yet we're not going to not allow you to do that. CDC says you can do it. So what we kind of settled on was the nurses right now don't feel like they want to burden the teachers with that. So we'll have temperature checks at the front door. We'll have bus drivers doing temperature checks, and then we'll have that stockpile of thermometers that will have the principal control. So there's one designated for each teacher. So that'll allow them to switch out ones that have broken, that need replacing. And then if we do get to the point where we feel like the teachers need to do that, we'll have them on standby. So we're just holding on to them right now as a safety precaution, but we're going to be aggressive at first, but not to the level of where we're going to ask our teachers to do that in the classroom yet.
That's great. That makes sense. But so every student will be temperature checked before they come into the building?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. What we've said is we've told people we're going to do that until it doesn't make sense anymore.
Okay.
And that, I mean, like last week at our athletic routes, we had some issues with the thermometers. They weren't working right. So, you're just going to do the best you can if, we've heard that they run 2 degrees difference than what they're supposed to. So if we start to have major issues, we'll just flex and adapt and we'll go with a different method. But right now, yes, that's our plan, is to start there, like I said, until it doesn't make sense anymore.
I'm really appreciative of everything that the district has done to provide students with school supplies and with the things necessary to start the year, including devices, etc. I did have the thought that perhaps, if possible, it'd be great if we could get some digital thermometers that we could provide to parents. They're difficult to find.
They are.
And we're asking everybody to self-screen at home. I think, if we are able to supply any to people, that would be great, because I know even in my house, it's difficult to find one when I need it.
It was, when we were trying to order those 650, Miss Halsey, it was a game every day to see who could get on Amazon or whatever website to get just chunks of 20 and 30 and 40.
Right. So if we're able to get any and make them available to parents.
Yes, ma'am.
I understand it's difficult. So my children did the rapid testing today at the high school, which was a very smooth and seamless process. And everybody seemed to be, being careful and cautious, and I appreciated it greatly. And I got their negative test results, within a few hours. What's the plan for us being able to roll that out campus-wide, and how often would we be testing?
So Coach Walsh and I are going to have a conversation about that this week. So I don't have a clear-cut answer for you, other than I want to get with him and make sure that he's able to provide us with as much information as he can. And at the same time, we want to make sure we meet with even the local health department to see whether that's something we want to pursue, and whether we feel like it was successful here and how we can kind of kick it up to a bigger level. But we want to make sure that we're really cautious and strategic with how we do that. So that conversation will take place this week.
That's great. If you could just keep us posted on that.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Because it went, I thought, very smooth today, and I was very impressed with the level of safety and professionalism. My last question is, I know that we have launched the COVID dashboard for the district, which I really appreciate. And I'm just wondering how often we're going to be updating that. So if I look at it on Tuesday morning, can I expect that the numbers on Tuesday reflect Monday, the day before?
Andrew, that's a you question.
Yes, ma'am. We'll be updating that every Monday. So it's going to be from the previous week. So you'll see data from the previous week for each campus in the district.
And then in addition to that, how are we notifying when there are cases on the campus? Who gets notified and how?
So that's, Andrew's leading that way, but from a TA standpoint, we have to notify, as we said before, right, the entire campus staff and students. And I believe, Andrew, we put it into our plan that it would be no later than that evening of that same day. Is that correct, Andrew?
That's correct. The same day we find out, our families and staff will know.
So tell me what that looks like in terms of, if my student at the high school, I'll receive a notification of any person that tests positive at the high school, no matter if she's there remote. I mean, she's doing remote, but she's doing on-campus soccer practice. So we're notifying the whole community, or how's that working?
Yes, we would notify every single family and every single staff member if a student or staff member that is on campus tests positive.
Great. I think that's great because I think that provides for the most transparency and people then can make the decisions that they need to make based on that. So those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ms. Cantu, can I follow up, Ms. Cantu?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I lost power for a little bit, but I'm back. May I follow up on that point briefly?
Yes, Mr. McLaughlin?
Andrew, is there a second notification? Because in a campus like the high school, if there's 2,200 students and 200 staff, unfortunately, we might get, fairly frequent general notifications. What are you doing for the classroom specifically, or kids that would have come in what you've defined as close contact to whomever has tested positive?
Yes, sir. Great question. So they would receive a second notification that they were in close contact with someone who tested positive, whether that's a staff member or a student.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
No further questions? We
Ms.
can
Kang,
move on.
Is that secondary notification, is that contact tracing that we're doing internally or that's being handled like by the county?
Internally.
Internally.
Do we need additional staffing for that?
We have approximately 3 to 4 people on every campus that have been trained. We've got the assistant principal in charge of safety. We've got a counselor. We've got the nurse and the parent liaison just as a backup. So that team, when we do have a situation, we have a flow chart that kind of guides everybody. And as soon as you put the word, that team goes into action, and then they start divvying up who they need to interview, whether it be the parent, the positive case, or the close contacts, and then we work it from there.
That's great. I promise this is my last point on this, but if we can make sure that we have that service and those positions being available to work on weekends, that would be great, because I know that when Texas State opened up, there were some issues in lag time because the contact tracers weren't initially working on the weekends. So you would have a student test positive on Friday, and teachers and students didn't know then until maybe Tuesday that they had come in contact because of the way that rolled out. So that's just
That's a good point.
shared observations. So thank you.
Thank you.
Into.
Yes, Mr. Redondo?
Thank you. Due to Ms. Halsey's line of questioning, I have a couple additional questions. So again, using Mr. McLaughlin's example at San Marcos High School, the entire campus is notified of a case. A secondary email goes out to those who have been deemed by the ISD having to come in close contact. That goes out to 7 students or 2 students, 1 faculty member, whatever that looks like. Are those identified and notified allowed to come back to school and to work that next day? Do they need to verify that they do not have COVID-19? What does that look like?
So when you do contact tracing, it's obviously a very subjective thing, right? So we have a definition, and the definition states that you must be within 15 minutes cumulative time, within 6 feet, but other factors like masking and dividers will be taken into consideration. So once that team has investigated and we've got this list of kids, right, at the end of our spreadsheet, it says meets the definition or doesn't meet the definition. The second that student meets the definition, they are quarantined for 14 days. So that call goes out immediately to the parent, and then we have on that spreadsheet the return date of the parent, along with who needs to be contacted as far as the registrar or the attendance person, and then they will contact the teachers. So it's a very strict process, but it is a subjective process, which, you know, it is across the country. So so what we've been preaching to all of our staff members, you know, this last couple of days is you're going to have a hard time meeting the definition if you have your mask on and you're farther than 6 feet. You really are going to have a hard time meeting that definition. What we're running to issues will be those times like PE and lunches and recess that we really have to make sure we get the message about what that looks like. But yes, at the end of the day, it's a 14-day quarantine instantly if you meet the definition.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wozniak, and I apologize as I'm writing down notes as you speak. If I, for instance, am a bus rider and I go to the bus and the bus driver gets my temperature and I have a temperature, I mean, obviously, I think it's different for if I'm a senior in high school aged or if I'm a pre-K student getting on the bus. But what does that look like, or what is the response if I do have a temperature at any grade level? I mean, I'm at a bus stop, not at home, don't have access to my home.
Right. So first of all, obviously we take it a second time, right, to see if there isn't something going on there. And then what we talked about internally, in a perfect world, we'd have a couple drivers on standby to go get those students, like maybe in a Suburban, and get them back home, because the last thing we can do, we don't want to deny access to the bus knowing like what you just said. We're not going to turn away a 9-year-old and have them go back home at a bus stop. So in those cases, what we'll do is we'll put that person in the front seat. We'll radio head to the campus, and then we'll have the nurse meet us in the bus loop so that she can get that student off the bus first and walk them discreetly into the building. And then obviously the nurse is going to do the under the tongue check, right, to make sure that it's the most accurate test, because those things do, they're digital. You use them too many times and they start to kind of get a mind of their own, and they need to be cooled down, and you've got wind and you got other things. So we want to be not real quick to just send kids away and say, go ahead and walk home. High school kids, you're right, that's a little bit different, but elementary kids for sure are going to be on the bus, and we'll get them there safely.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wozniak, for that additional clarification. And just for me as an individual trustee, having those students isolated at the front of the bus or wherever, as close as they are to the front of the bus in regards to the driver, I know the ISD has done a phenomenal job providing protection equipment and face masks and things like that. Individually, I'd like to see us, if a student who has a temperature or who might have COVID-19 is going to be sitting on the bus for the duration of that route, if they're picked up first or whatever that looks like, if transportation isn't available on the back end to pick them up and take them home, is that we look at providing KN95 masks to our bus drivers, something that's a little bit more robust than just the Rattler face cloth or just a over-the-counter Target medical face mask that anyone can get, just if they're going to be in close proximity for a prolonged duration of time with students who might have COVID-19. But other than that, thank you, Ms. Cantu, for indulging my questions, and thank you all for all the work you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
Just quick follow-up, Ms. Cantu. I'm sorry. I want to make sure I understood that right, Mr. Wozniak.
Go ahead.
So we have someone flagged with a fever, which is our, maybe one of our main screening indicators of potential infection. And then we're going to put that kid on the bus with the other kids and the staff and then walk them into the building. Is it just me, or does that seem like a strange way to handle the potential infection?
I've struggled with the same thing. It is a strange thing to say. It's our last option. Obviously our first option is to make contact with that parent immediately, which is dispatch's job, right? part of the thing that we'll run into, right, is if we're holding up traffic, we can't wait 5 minutes for a parent. So some of the ideas that we've thrown around is if we have to leave, then maybe en route we can come get that kid, if that's with assuming we have extra drivers that are just kind of sitting around, which I highly doubt. But so the last case would be, if we have no other options, would be front seat, get the student to school, and then have the nurse handle it from there.
Okay. But we have monitors, right? The monitor could potentially stay at the site, no?
Pre-K and special needs.
That's the only monitors we still have?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we go on, to continue with our superintendent's report, Ms. Costilla was not feeling well and she left the meeting at 6:17, whoever is documenting that. Thank you. Mr. Superintendent, let's continue.
Mr. Hubenak?
Yes, can everyone hear me okay? Yep, okay, good. Good evening, Madam President, Superintendent Cardena, members of the board. I'm Greg Hubenak, Executive Director of Technology. And I'm just going to give you a brief overview of devices and connectivity and the first week or two of school being completely remote learning and how we stood up. So the first part really is, at the very beginning of the pandemic, we realized, okay, if everyone is going to have a device, then we need some more equipment. We immediately made a purchase of 85 voice uplift systems. These are so that teachers that are wearing a mask or even a face shield can then project to the students that are in the room. Of course, we're not using these yet, but we did get some distributed to campuses to see if they do help. 750 Chromebooks, 600 iPads, and well over 500 chargers to replace the broken and lost ones. We made that purchase immediately. So all of that did arrive before it was time to go back to school. Another thing that we had ordered were 500 webcams. These are to be paired with the interactive flat screen panels that are in the classrooms. So the kids at home can get a really good view of any activities that are happening in the classroom. I will say that we selected our vendor based upon the availability of when those items should ship, and they should have been here early September. They're another item that's a hot commodity, and unfortunately that ship date has slipped and is now looking at early October, so I'm going to call that mid-October. That's unfortunate, and there's really nothing that we can do about that. We did notice that we were running dangerously low on iPads, so we were able to find a local source of iPads. They're not brand new, but they're available, and they're still modern enough to be good. So we got those and got them into the district and prepared and out to the campuses within the first couple of days of school, so that kids that did need iPads are able to get them. That kind of brings us to where we are right now. We do have 850 Wi-Fi hotspots in the district, and they're almost all deployed. And so we do have a list of kids that still need some sort of connectivity or need better connectivity. We've partnered with a couple of local providers to provide alternative service. In some homes, the Wi-Fi hotspots aren't really the best solution. You may have 3 or 4 or 5 kids trying to use that hotspot, or you may be in an area where the cellular provider just doesn't have a good signal. So Grande has a program called Internet First. I'm going to tell you quite a bit more about this in a moment, but we have requested service currently for up to 100 kids, and over 50 of them have been validated to be serviceable. And further, going to mention that the list that we did send is a list of kids, families that are pre-qualified as low-income homes, because that is a prerequisite for this program. Another company that we found, one that you may not have heard of, is BTX1. They provide a wireless solution to a home. It's a tower-based system. They do mount equipment on the home and provides Wi-Fi inside the house. So we have some orders with them as well. Orders pending. We're just now building them as a vendor in our finance systems. Currently, there's 16 orders, but we're thinking maybe around 25 to fill in the gaps. There's also another large purchase you may have heard about called the TEA bulk order. This is where Region 4 ran a consortium purchase for the entire state of Texas. The school districts were encouraged to participate, pooled resources for reduced rates and as expedited delivery as we can get given that size of order. We do have 150 hotspots that are scheduled to arrive. They're scheduled to be here late September, and so far the estimates are holding that late September they should get here. So I'm saying that early October we should be able to get them in the hands of campuses and our kids. Also, 700 Chromebooks and 600 high school laptops. Those were supposed to be here mid-September to October. That date has slipped considerably out to October, as early as October, but looking at some delivery as late as the middle of December. The good news is we don't need these devices in order for every kid to have a device. We need them to have some depth and some flexibility, and also to help us out as some of these devices fail and get a jump on next year's lifecycle replacement as some of our devices that we have are aging. So overall, iPads, I think we're good. I think that any kid that needs an iPad, campuses have iPads to hand out. Chromebooks also, although we thought we had way too many, not too many, but we thought we had ample supply. Those devices tend to get broken more than other devices, but we do have enough. There are some campuses that have an extremely low supply, but they've been adopted by campuses that have a surplus. So we feel confident that any kid that needs a Chromebook can have one. The high school laptops were just shortly shy. We were 1-to-1 at that campus prior. So looking at the inventory, it looked like we had enough for every kid. When reality hits and you find out what's broken, differences in enrollment, differences in the number of kids that actually pick up their device versus last year, some just simply didn't want one. We're just slightly shy. So the high school does have to hand out some Chromebooks as we wait on the laptops as part of the TEA bulk order to arrive. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this program from Grande. It's a really exciting program. It's called Internet First, and it is only for households that qualify in some way as a low-income home. There are a lot of different qualifications, but that service at only $10 per month with no installation, the first 2 months are free, and no contract as a month-to-month service. You can't beat that. They offer this service in two ways. One way is directly to families themselves, if those families contact them and can show qualification as right here in this bullet, and they're serviceable, address the Grande services. They also have a program to where this can be subsidized by the district. The district is the customer of record, and we pre-approve service addresses for those families that need our assistance. So it's a great program, and it's offered in two ways. The other one I spoke of is a tower-based wireless service. This is not the best map. It's the one from their website. And although you can't make out the names of the towns, the star here is San Marcos. New Braunfels is here. Seguin. Martindale would be right along here. And all the way out here is Luling. So this is showing their coverage area on homes that are potentially servable by their towers. And it perfectly aligns with some of our students who are areas that are outlying, out in the Martindale area, maybe rural, don't have Time Warner or Grande, and hotspots may not even be the best solution. So we have partnered with them as well, and they have a similar type program where San Marcos CISD is the customer of record with a reduced rate. It's a free installation with $29 per month. It's actually $20 per month with a $9 management fee. It's only a 3-month commitment. So this is kind of our backup to the backup plan to make sure that every student that needs to be connected for remote learning can be. Again, it does require installation of equipment on the home, and both these programs require the cooperation of the family to allow access by installation technicians, et cetera. So connectivity at a high level, this is an inventory of our hotspots. It's mostly accurate. Hotspots do break, and sometimes things are, for whatever reason, not available. But everything that's green here is a device that is available for use, and everything that's in the orange shaded area is, no longer in service. But our grand total hotspots deployed are available out there, includes all the numbers though. And then this last column is the important one, really, and we have a shared Google Sheet with all of the campuses where they put the name and the information, address, parent contact information for all families who need some sort of connectivity assistance. This may be that they don't have connectivity now, or it may be that what they do have is not working out very well for them. So there's 133 students currently listed by the campuses, and we have requested 100 families to Grande. 56 of those are verified serviceable. 44 of them are still pending whether or not those families are serviceable. However, we did, again, pre-qualify these families based on their economic disadvantage status and also their general address to make sure they were in an area that's otherwise serviceable by Grande. And then 16 orders by the wireless VTX1 company. And worth noting, we do have the 150 more hotspots as a part of the TEA bulk order that are to arrive at the end of this month. So just a quick summary on how we've funded the equipping of remote learning. Immediately, we knew that we needed the hotspots. We made that order. If you'll remember, well, it was the hotspots and also repair parts and chargers for the devices. We did come to you for a budget amendment to use local funds, and that was approved. Thank you guys very much. As the programs became available, though, we were able to code those purchases to ESSER and the CARES Relief Fund. So we were able to avoid burdening fund balance for those purchases. The voice uplift systems, the webcams, 600 iPads, and 750 Chromebooks was 100% out of the ESSER funds. And additionally, there's a program with the rules to be released in October where those purchases could be eligible for some reimbursement. But those rules are not solid yet, but we're definitely keeping our eye on that, Mike Doyle and I. Lastly, the 150 hotspots, 600 high school laptops, and the 700 Chromebooks as part of TEA bulk order. It's worth noting that TEA matched us half on that purchase, so we only paid for half. The other half of it came out of the local budget that we already had planned for the replacement of student one-to-one devices and teacher devices. So money that was allocated for that type of purpose was used, but we only had to pay half. So a quick review of the first week. It was fun. I wanted to highlight the Family and Community Support Hotline because this is a win story all the way around. Not only did we expand our supported customer base, from 1,000 employees to 1,000 employees, 8,000 students and their families, but we were able to partner with the campuses as well. So first thing Monday morning, we noticed, okay, the phones are ringing off the hook, just solid. As soon as the phone would touch the hook, it would be ringing again. We enabled a plan that we had before where, depending on which campus that family is calling about, those calls could be screened by a representative at the campus. And then if it needed to escalate to the help desk, then it would do so. Combined, there were almost 800 calls made to that family support line on the first day. And that's on top of the 174 calls that were received to the traditional help desk by staff members. So immediately you'll see that these numbers start to drop. The next day, only 222 calls made to the hotline with 50 calls to the help desk. Again, halved on Thursday and dropped down to 73 on Friday, and it seems to be hovering at or under around 50 per day now, and the regular help desk calls to around or under 30. So that definitely shows that there was a lot of interest. It was new to everyone. I just have to also say that not only are the families learning new platforms, the teachers are learning new platforms, all the folks that were answering these phones were encountering problems that they had never heard of before, could have never planned for, and suddenly had to become experts in the entire suite of our learning applications. And as of today, they're experts. But it was a remarkable effort, and no one complained. And I was extremely proud of not only my team, but of the campuses that were helping us make sure that families did not get a busy signal, or they were able to get through and talk to someone. That was our number one goal, not have it go off to never land, but talk to a human. And I think that we did a good job of that. Some of the biggest technical challenges that popped up, there was an issue with iPads that were not receiving apps from the district's management system. We knew what that problem was very early on in the morning. It required our vendor to help to solve that, the technical support, and that was resolved at the end of the first day. The other issue that generated some calls was Google videos within the Canvas platform not being viewable within Canvas without some hurdles to go through. That one was a little bit more elusive. It took to the end of the week to find the resolution to that. Everything else has been just a random bag of a bunch of different things I don't think we need to go into, but those were I guess the biggest stories as far as tech challenges the first week. So we still have some devices in support coming. The teacher laptop batteries are going out very quickly. More chargers, and I have to state though that the chargers, even though we anticipated a lot of loss and a lot of breakage, it was quite a bit more than we had expected. And we're expecting to even have to supply quite a few more during the year. So I'll work with campuses and make sure we get messaging out to the families to please take care of these chargers. And as part of your equipment, you need to turn it in with the device. Lots of repair parts. Again, the bulk order that I had previously mentioned. If you're doing the math, you'll notice that there's a few more devices and services and hotspots than it appears that we have a need for. But these 150 hotspots that we do receive will replace an existing 100 that we have in the service that are very expensive for an overall savings of about $27,000 to the district over the course of this semester or this school year. That is actually all that I had to share with you. So at this point, if you have questions for me, or I'll pass it on to the next person.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions, Ms. Halsey?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hudana. I wanted to say, as one of the people who represent at least one or two of those phone calls to the help desks during the first week, that I really appreciated everybody's effort and everybody's work at both the campus level and at the help desk. Everybody was patient, and even though the situations were frustrating, and I know the phone was ringing off the hook, everybody just was friendly and patient and took their time and stuck with it to solve the problems. And I also saw that staff, teachers, administrators, and tech staff were on social media also helping people with issues that they were having. So it's a difficult thing that we just pulled off, and I really appreciate all of your work and all of your efforts.
It was definitely a combined effort. Just like you said, it was everyone pitching in. We definitely had our challenge here, but without the help of the campuses and all the teachers and staff and everyone that was help sharing information, it could have been a total nightmare. But there were a lot of calls generated, but overall, I think it's a pretty good success story, and it's definitely leveled off. So we're reaching kind of a steady plateau, and that's good news.
I thought it was great. I mean, even at the classroom level, I know when there were some hiccups inside the classroom, teachers were very patient and calm and telling the students, just come back and check in later, and we'll work through it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else? And we can proceed to the reports. Informational items. Is the superintendent going to present the Gear Up National Recognition Week conversation?
No, they're ready to go. Miss
They're
Moss
gonna
and
do it.
her team, Greer, Amadeo, and Miss Posey, they're ready to go. So I'll turn it over to them.
Okay.
Okay, looks like we're going to start with a quick video, just a year in review of Gear Up. All right, thank
Great.
you. It's quick, but there are so many pictures to show. We wanted to get as many as we could. If you want to pull up our presentation, get started. Bear with us, we're figuring this out. All right, that'll work, I think. There, okay, thank you. Thanks guys for letting us talk. I'm Brittany Posey. I'm the 8th grade Gear Up coordinator at Goodnight and at Miller.
My name's Amadeo Villanueva. I am the Gear Up coordinator for 9th graders at the San Marcos High School.
Hey everyone, Megan Mossman, Gear Up coordinator supporting our 10th graders at San Marcos High School.
Good evening, I'm Greer Del Rio, and I'm also supporting our sophomores at San Marcos High School. And we also have Ms. Jessica Hernandez, who is our Senior Administrative Associate that helps support all of our cohorts as well.
It's also Greer's birthday today.
Yes.
Happy birthday, Greer.
Thank you. Thank you.
Woo!
So first, we just want to thank all of you for your support so much. SMCISD Board of Trustees and Superintendent Cardona, Dr. Ruiz Mills, Ms. Fowler, Ms. Presley, Mr. Alvarez, and Ms. Gifrich.
One of the great things about the Gear Up grant is that our objectives line up directly with the San Marcos CISD core commitments. So our objectives for the year are to increase the academic performance and prepare our students for graduation and their participation in post-secondary education. We also want to increase the students' expectations and students and families' knowledge of post-secondary education and financing. And our final objective is to increase our parents' and students' knowledge for those, including their STEM skills.
So in case you didn't know already, Gear Up stands for something. It stands for Gaining Early Awareness and Readiness for Undergraduate Programs. So we work with every single 8th grader, 9th grader, and 10th grader here in SMCISD. And a few unique aspects that pertain to our grant, we follow particular cohorts and classes of students. So we transition with them as they move through the grade levels here in SMCISD. Also, post-secondary readiness, when they graduate from San Marcos High School, the Gear Up grant also helps support these students 1 year into their post-secondary goals. So when our students are attending community college, Texas A&M, University of Texas, or out of state, Gear Up is still there to support our students. We serve every single student in the particular cohort, and we also really get to know our kids, we get to know our families, and we love to offer that personalized support to our students and families. So we are a partnership grant with the University of Texas at Austin. We actually have 2 grants in SMCISD. We have a 2017 grant that Greer and I are a part of, and then we also have a 2018 grant that Brittany Posey and Amadeo Villanueva are a part of. We are a match grant, and so really we want to direct our focus to build capacity and sustainability, because Gear Up isn't going to be around forever. And so our cohort consists of just over 2,000 students, but keep in mind we also support their families as well. And so we support students in 8th, 9th, and 10th grades.
So a few of the supports that we provided students during this summer, we had our UT Gear Up Virtual Challenge. Usually the students are on campus at UT, but this year they were able to still reach those goals virtually. We also have a Texas A&M Construction Academy. The kids were able to get these really great boxes that they were able to, it had all the supplies they needed to build these bird houses and these great things. We had a dystopian adventure camp. The kids could choose a dystopian novel of their choice. We had a sophomore vision 2020 to prepare them for their sophomore year of high school. We also had an early college high school bridge camp preparing our students for their freshman year of high school as well as their freshman year of college. And we also had a geoforce camp where the students explored geosciences, and then also algebra bridge camp for our current 8th graders preparing them for Algebra 1. And we have academic supports for our students. Of course, we have one-on-one counseling and advising. We work with the students on career and industry. We work with them on their endorsements, the courses they could be taking. We just have those rich conversations with them about their academics and their career path. We have financial aid and financial literacy counseling. We work with them on scholarships that they could be eligible for. Also, when it's time for them to complete their FAFSA, we'll be working with them. We also have tutor.com through the Princeton Review. It's free for all of our students, and it's 24/7 online tutoring. We've also provided student workshops based on student needs. Last year, we provided some on PSAT, financial literacy. We also have educator professional development that's provided through the UT Gear Up staff based on teacher need.
So while we focus on the academic support, we also focus on the social and emotional support. One of the main ways that we do that is through mentoring. A lot of you guys are already familiar with that. We've had community mentors that have come on campus and worked with our students. We also have a great amount of teachers that are mentors for our students. They really rely on that teacher-student relationship. Another exciting opportunity that is new, shout out to our Pathways team. These are juniors and seniors that have been working really hard coming up with a mentorship initiative. They're going to be working with our 8th, 9th, and 10th graders and just partnering students that have similar interests and providing them the opportunities that maybe they missed when they were in 8th, 9th, and 10th grade. And so it could be internships, it could be all kinds of different things. So Pathways is a new initiative coming through. Actually just started application process today, so look for that on social media. Another opportunity we have is Student Success Agency. What this is we have near peer mentors. So they're going to be young professionals, late college to young professional, that are going to be partnered with some of our students as well. And that will be a virtual mentorship. So just another person for them to get that social emotional support. Lastly, Ms. Del Rio already referred to the counseling and advising. But we don't just focus on academics with our students. We also provide that social, emotional, whatever our students need, we have that personal support with them.
And as you know, GERP is really big on the family support that we show them. And one of the things that we introduced last year was a master class. It's a financial literacy course for our parents. And if you have an opportunity, I would highly recommend attending one of them. It was such a great turnout. We get to feed our families and give them tips on you know, all sorts of things for their students, from, you know, how to apply for scholarships, how to save for college, and FAFSA, just to name a few. We're also really big on those family events. Again, we love to do the school supply drives and help out when we can with the Rattler Roundups and the freshman orientation, the sophomore bridges, stuff like that. So GERP's really big on those relationships with the families. And again, like Greer alluded to earlier, Brittany, we're really big on the academic advising with our students, be it one-on-one with us, with their mentors, their peers in the school. So really big on that, just building those relationships.
Okay, we have got to give a special shout out and a thank you to the entire SMCISD district and Andrew Fernandez and Lisa Jones. You all have been amazing. So happy National Gear Up Week. The city of San Marcos kicked off our celebration with a proclamation. As well as this year, we get to incorporate our elementary schools. We're so excited to have them a part of National Gear Up Week and a part of our college and career experiences starting in elementary school. And so let's go through each day. So tomorrow is Team Up with a Tutor Tuesday. We are also hosting our Gear Up Family Night at 6 o'clock. Our 8th, 9th, and 10th graders are invited, as well as any staff who would like to attend. On Wednesday, we dream big for college, and we have a partnership with CoolSpeak with the grant. And CoolSpeak is providing special sessions for free to our educators, our parents, and our students. So just to name a few, educators get to participate in tips and tricks for engaging students virtually, creating an inclusive school culture, writing as a form of meditation, get your mind right, and also parent engagement like a pro. So students and parents, we have some special sessions for you as well. We have communicating with your teen, the power of influence. We have how to support your student, the FAFSA, writing for scholarships. Oh, P.S. some of these sessions for our families are also going to be in Spanish. And so many more sessions. Mr. Fernandez has sent that information out, and we're so thankful for that. So Thursday is we're gonna be throwing it back. So you're gonna dress in your favorite decade, and we have trivia night. So 8th, 9th, and 10th grade students and families. Also, we had a huge interest from our educators. Our secondary educators are attending our trivia night, and also that's gonna be at 7 p.m. Sorry, that time is incorrect. So trivia night's gonna be at 7, and then Friday we are striking as one. Rattlers are college bound. So all grade levels are going to be participating. We get to show our pride and wear our Rattler purple. We have a special shout out to Mr. Cardona, who was involved in our first ever Rattler red carpet rollout. Miss Pearson helped host that event for us. We are so thankful for you guys. And we are feeling the love and support. And so shout out to everybody. We appreciate you all.
Okay, last but not least, we want to talk about how do we continue this conversation? Gear Up Week is an amazing week, but Gear Up happens all year long. So what do we do to continue that? The first thing we wanted to focus on was facilitating new partnerships. We already have so many partnerships. Our community in San Marcos really supports us, and we're so thankful for that. And we want to just continue to add on to those. So please let us know if you have any ideas for new partnerships. We want to give our students as many opportunities as we can. And then we also want to just maintain the momentum. We really focus on sustainability. Yes, Gear Up is these grade levels, but how are we sustaining that so that our entire school district is having that college and career culture and mindset? So we are very thankful for you guys. Thank you for allowing us to speak to you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You too.
Ms. Cantu,
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Mr. Arredondo, then Ms. Halsey.
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. I just wanted to thank Megan and Greer and Amadeo and the rest of the Gear Up group. I know things have been interesting this year with so many things being virtual, but it's always been a pleasure to tune in to Twitter, which was brought up earlier, and see the great work that our Gear Up program is doing across our public school system. So thank you all so much for all the work that you continue to do and your ability to pivot quickly to an online world and keep Gear Up going in such a phenomenal way. So thank you all so much.
Ms. Halsey, were you next?
Yes, thank you. I echo Mr. Ardondo's sentiments that y'all do a great job all the time, but especially I wanted to recognize the work that you did over the summer because I know, there wasn't a whole lot going on for kids over the summer. And I know that y'all were offering lots of programs and chats and resources and counseling. And I know how valuable that was to our kids. And I really appreciate all of your efforts on that. Thanks.
We're so grateful to have the Gear Up program with our school district, and we look forward to the next year to see what Gear Up has for us. Are we ready to move on to the next topic? Anyone else going to comment? Now we can present back to school asynchronous plan. I guess that's Ms. Reese. Ms. Reese-Mills, Dr. Reese-Mills.
Yes, good evening, Board of Trustees. This is just an information item circling back to our discussion from the August the 17th board meeting. As we scroll through this document, it just gave a brief introduction, just reflecting on what we started doing back in July as far as the device distribution. As we continued on through, though, I wanted to make note that we are providing a rigorous TEAC-based instruction to all students during this time of remote learning. It's also imperative to know that we are going to have additional reconsideration windows. Andrew, if you can back up to page 2. Those reconsideration windows are at the bottom of that document. We have October 19th through October 23rd would be the reconsideration window for the second 9 weeks, which would begin on November 9th. Then the next one would be December 14th through December 18th, which would be the reconsideration window starting February 1st. And then March 8th through March 12th, the reconsideration window beginning April 12th. We felt it was necessary to be prepared, not knowing how long we will be in this state of remote instruction. So we plan for reconsideration windows throughout the year. As we move on and we go to page 3 where it says remote learning right here, wanting to review asynchronous instruction. As you recall, asynchronous instruction is really the funding model on how we collect our average daily attendance, our ADA. This option was selected because it offers the most flexibility for students in pre-K through 12th grade. The other model, if we would have selected synchronous, that would have only been for certain grade levels. With this asynchronous model, the instruction is self-paced with consistent teacher interaction, and we utilize our learning management system, which is Canvas, and we offered a substantial PD for the first 3 weeks prior to starting school on September the 8th. Within Canvas, teachers can embed assignments, they can embed lessons that also include video recorded lessons. So if a student is unable to log in and work simultaneously in the live instruction, they still have an opportunity to go in and capture what was presented during that class time. But in this asynchronous model, teachers are expected to take daily attendance. That means that the students need to engage in remote learning while on this platform, because the 90% attendance rule is still in order, which is very important for students to earn credit and be promoted to the next grade level. And the next slide, Andrew. Right here on this slide, the attendance engagement. There are 3 ways for our students to earn ADA in this asynchronous plan. The first one is daily progress in Canvas, which is, again, the learning management system, or daily progress via teacher-student interaction, or the completion or turn-in of an assignment from a student to a teacher. So that daily progress could be as simple as a lesson the teacher puts in, or utilizing one of our platforms, other software platforms such as Lexia or IXL or Dreambox, or the daily progress via student interaction. The student logs on and participates in that live instruction with the teacher, would also count as ADA. What's important to note here is that students have until 11:59 p.m. to submit an assignment, and that's under the student column. But that doesn't mean that a teacher has to go and check attendance at midnight. We are counting all students present, so then the next day when the teacher has their conference period, they can go into Canvas and they can pull a report that shows them which students engaged for that day. And any student who did not engage in any one of those methods, then they just go and change that attendance from present to absent. You'll notice that we have expectations for students and parents, and it's basically asking them to follow the designated schedule and to communicate with their teachers and their campus administrators if they're having any issues with technology or understanding the assignments. Our teachers have set up office hours where they work with their students, and they're also doing breakout rooms to provide interventions. And again, that communication is key between the student, the parent, and the teacher, and following our grading guidelines, that communication usually happens within a 48-hour period. Andrew, the next slide, please. Right here on page 5, what we've done is we've broken this up by elementary, middle school, and high school. Just talks about participating in daily asynchronous instruction. The grading policies and the attendance requirements for asynchronous instruction are the same as face-to-face instruction. And the rationale behind that is if a student needs to go between face-to-face to remote instruction throughout the year, we really want to provide that consistency. And so the grading guidelines will be the same prior to the closure in March of 2020. And so we're still following our standards-based grading for elementary, and then of course still following our grading policies for the remaining grades and secondary. Go ahead and scroll down, Andrew. We're providing counseling services in all of these 3 levels, elementary, middle, and high school, for in-person and in remote. Our counselors and our Gear Up team did an incredible job this past spring providing counseling resources throughout this, so we will continue to work with our students to develop a plan of support, and also implementing social emotional learning exercises and strategies throughout the day. We will continue with our dual language classes pre-K through 4th grade, and we'll continue to provide any services for our students with disabilities, 504, GT, and our electives. Andrew, if you can go ahead and scroll down to the high school. So right here at San Marcos High School, again, it is the same thing. as well here, but one of the key areas that I wanted to point out as well is under high school elective areas. You'll note that the CTE courses are available for both in-person and online using some of the industry-based curriculum resources, but there are CTE courses that are aligned to the industry-based certification that may require hands-on training hours. And so Mr. Doyle is working with our leaders in the workforce and with our teachers, so our students will be able to attain those practicum hours as needed. If you scroll up a little bit, Andrew, we do have our dual credit, our dual credit and our early college high school. ACC does offer right now a remote learning setting, but they are following a synchronous plan. But because so many of the school districts in this area are on an asynchronous model, we've been fortunate that some of the professors have adapted to an asynchronous instruction platform for our students enrolled in dual credit. And the in-person courses as of right now will not be offered during this first semester. Early college high school, as you recall, Coastal Bend is an online learning platform. And so our students are still participating in that. It's a blended model, and they're able to do that asynchronously as well. Going on, Andrew. Our Phoenix classes on page 9. Phoenix will continue to utilize Edgenuity as their learning platform, and so that has not changed. That is how we've presented instruction to our Phoenix classes. At Lamar, our students there, Ms. Velasquez has worked with middle school and high school team to where our students will have access to the Canvas resources, and our Lamar teachers will assist the students and facilitate it almost as co-teachers. So they are receiving that same instruction that they would receive as if they were still on their home campus. Continuing on, and then just providing our special education resources. We are required to continue providing the resources. Nothing has changed there. We've had to tweak some of the way that instruction is facilitated, but we are providing the necessary services. Our dyslexia services continue. In fact, we will be doing online testing with our first graders, which is required through the Texas Education Agency within the first 20 days of school. And so we will be using our MAP screener to provide that testing remotely. We'll continue with our 504 services and services for our English language learners. And then again, we will continue providing our food services, our technologies, devices for students, as Mr. Hubenak discussed, and then parent technology support. We're looking at providing some parent academies as well, so we can show parents potentially in small groups how to utilize the devices and the resources available. As we go to page 12, we have the communication platforms that we've been using to communicate with our families. Just a couple of there. We have Thought Exchange, Let's Talk, Blackboard, and again, you've heard me speak about Canvas for our students. And then we have been doing parent outreach. That's been through Miss Rose Pearson doing her Facebook Live sessions. And then just a timeline that we have here of all of the conversations that we had with our parents, our families, and our teachers going back to May the 19th to discuss all of the plans as we were planning for this upcoming year. On page 13, we started on August the 10th, where we started to review what school was really going to look like as we started to transition back. We were fortunate that as a school board, you approved our start to September the 8th because that allowed us to provide our teachers with a lot of training so they could feel better prepared. And then we also have developed some reconsideration windows where families will continue to have that opportunity to determine what is working best for their learners and for themselves as a family. We have our family learning experiences developed through October the 2nd. And as mentioned earlier, we're looking at adding more support for small group sessions with our parents so we can help them navigate all of the resources that are out there. Because even when remote learning, if and when this ever comes to an end, this technology component is so important, and it's something that we would like to continue to integrate because there may be instances where students need to continue utilizing this platform. So let's go ahead and scroll to the face-to-face in-person instruction. So the in-person instruction will resume on October the 5th. As you recall, at the August the 17th board meeting, we went ahead and we presented a waiver application to you. And that waiver said that even though we could extend remote learning for an additional 4 weeks, we still needed to allow students onto campus for those individuals that really needed to be here. That could be simply because their parents need students back on campus or because of connectivity issues or concerns. So even if we, I just want to say, even if we were to extend, we would still need to allow students back into our facilities. Mr. Fernandez just completed another reconsideration window where it was slightly under 50%. Am I correct on that, Mr. Fernandez? Where students are returning back to campus, and we'll get those numbers to you by a student or by a grade level, campus, and teacher as requested earlier. But what will this look like? Principals have met with their faculties to gain insight on what this transition would look like as students start to approach. As of right now, as we review the numbers, it looks like there are going to be opportunities for the teachers to do that blended model approach where they will have some students sitting in their classrooms and some students that will be operating from the remote learning platform. The rationale behind that given to us by the teachers and the principals was because teachers would like the consistency of providing that instruction to their students. Our principals have developed a really solid plan on what this will look like. They have narrowed it down specifically at, say, the middle schools where they will continue following that block schedule, but that's the rationale behind that is to limit the transitions in the hallways, but those transitions are so planned to where they would be staggered, they would occur every 4 minutes, they would be supervised, escorting students into the next classroom. And so we are working on developing that plan to where we can send that to you so you can review it. But all of our leaders, especially elementary, middle, and high school, have really received feedback. Also, during professional learning, we met with every faculty in the district to discuss what attendance would look like and to discuss the asynchronous plan. We asked for feedback regarding these plans and for feedback on what it would look like as we returned. We took that feedback that we were provided and we adjusted accordingly. So Again, the face-to-face instruction option may include the reduced class sizes and of course following the appropriate safety measures and the health protocols as defined earlier and that Mr. Wozniak will also review, will be supervised in staggered transition periods at the secondary level. And then students who begin the year on October 5th face-to-face may move into remote instruction for a period of time if needed. And they will also have those dates for the reconsideration windows to go back and forth if necessary. Going down, Andrew, we have the disease and mitigation guidelines for parents, student, and staff. And Mr. Wozniak, would you like to touch on this one more time?
Yes, ma'am. So can you scroll down a little bit, Andrew? Keep going, keep going, keep going. So that's the list of, okay, stop right there, please. So there's a list, obviously, of our contacts at each campus. If you go down a little bit more, Andrew, scroll down. So we expect that that parents and guardians will obviously screen before coming to school, but we'll also play a part in that, like we said, with the temperature check. With the arrival, what you'll probably most likely see from, you know, especially in elementary campuses, you'll see somebody doing a temperature check and handing out hand sanitizer as they enter the building. Continue down, please. Dismissal, again, staggered times, and a lot of that will depend on, you know, how many kids are actually on that campus, but different exits, if allowable. The disinfecting and the hand sanitizing, I think we've covered that quite a bit. We've currently, we have at every campus a 55-gallon drum that's sitting in a custodial closet that the teachers will be able to refill. And unfortunately, when you think about how much 55 gallons will actually last, it's not as much as you might think. So we actually have another 55-gallon in storage waiting to be delivered in about a month. Continue, please. We're expecting too that we have thorough hand washing throughout the day, and it's important that we get the message across to our kiddos and our families that hand sanitizer is not the key, right? It's soap and water. You've seen that multiple times from the CDC, and that's by far the most effective. So we want to make sure that teachers are diligent with frequent hand washing breaks in the restrooms. The masks and the face coverings. So like we stated earlier, all staff members and all students were given will be given a cloth, a face shield, and a gaiter. And our expectation is that that they pick one of those. Continue, please. Visitor policies. We have, obviously, we've seen some of the signage that we have on each door. And I've also met with the staff, the front office staffs of every school, and we've developed just in-house protocols to make them feel more comfortable with how they want to run their front offices for their safety, as well as those that enter. We just finished up with our Raptor system that will have screening questions in it, and I actually got an alert the other day that said somebody at a campus had failed their the screening of COVID, and it alerted everybody that was on the email to let us know that they were they had failed and that we'd be turning them away. So that's a real nice feature that we've got in Raptor now. Campus building cleaning, we've talked about that multiple times with frequent cleaning from the custodial staff, as well as the delivery of the Pathosans disinfectant to teachers with virtually an unlimited supply that custodians will keep them as far as updating their bottles and getting them paper towels throughout the day. Andrew and I are actually going to work on a sanitizing type of disinfectant video this week, so that we can kind of show just the how-to to disinfect, how to clean, what our expectations are from staff, so they don't feel like that we've just handed them cleaning supplies, right, and not giving them any kind of guidance. So we're going to be working on that. I believe tomorrow we're going to actually shoot that video. Continue, please. Okay, stop there. Right there, thank you. So that's just that, an idea of the, kind of the steps with when you don't have any confirmed cases, and then working down to like we said, the close contact as you begin to have more cases and what that looks like. And then the modified operations. Continue, Andrew, please. We mentioned that earlier. It says modified right there. 3 or more confirmed cases, 1 specific classroom is obviously a threshold that we start looking at that classroom. Right there. Facility closure there. That's again, we discussed that earlier. The 10% would be a possibility, and then 3 facilities at 10% would cause us to really take a hard look at whether we wanted to shut down the district or not. Students or staff displaying COVID symptoms. So we've got, like we said, we've finished our mapping, and we've coordinated with Dr. Baez to make sure that our mapping of our students who are positive for COVID or that are exposed to COVID at home, they very much mirror what Dr. Baez is doing with the employees. And so it's a very structured flow chart that we've shared with all the nurses, front office staff, and administrators. Continue, please. Again, like Mr. Ordano was asking, this just kind of lays out kind of just the TA guidelines as far as when we do have somebody that's met that definition of close contact, whether it be a student, staff member, anybody in the district, they will be quarantined for 14 days. And so that's what we've had a lot of practice on lately, right? With staff members from March until now, with practicing those investigations and doing that kind of work where we make those decisions on whether they're quarantined or not. Water, again, as if you've been on any campuses, we've shut down water fountains, and we've gone to the water, I guess you'd say the water, I don't even know what they're called, the water delivery system where you put the bottle under it, right? And it automatically comes on. I can't remember what those are called. But again, cafeteria, breakfast and lunches. Breakfast will be more of a grab and go, and lunch will be go through the lines, and then administrators are making decisions on what's best for their campus based on numbers and their spacing as to where those students will eat after they go through the line. Continue, please. Visitors, again, our campuses are open to essential visitors only, and essential visitors for us are going to be basically defined as something like an ARD meeting, or that there was an appointment made ahead of time. So we're not going to allow outside food and things like that for until further notice. Parent meetings, again, we'll try the best we can to do virtual. And then our transportation, of course, the little piece at the end says that we're going to do a lot of the same safety things that we've talked about on campuses, as far as on the buses, face coverings on the bus, hand sanitizer as they approach, the thermometer for the temp check. Windows will be down with weather permitting to allow ventilation. Okay, there's extracurricular and athletics, which talks a lot about that we'll be following TA and UIL guidelines, which again are forever changing. Coach Walsh will have his first big home game this Friday. The good news is that he's had some practice now with a couple big events where he's hosted some games that were from out of county. And so he was able to have his staff kind of have some hands-on experience with what we might expect with crowd control and spacing and capacity and all those kind of good things. Continue. Fine arts, again, a lot like whatever UIL is telling us as far as events and whether we will even be able to travel to go to certain events. We don't know yet. I know Dr. Reese-Mills is very much a fine arts person, and she'll let us know whether we're actually allowed to participate. But as of right now, Dr. Reese-Mills, I think we're still not going to be traveling, right?
Right, as of right now, we haven't determined any competition at this point.
And then we mentioned earlier, just the signage, how important that is, and that we make sure that we have constant visuals on our spacing and what we expect as far as visitors and what we expect in the hallways. So again, shout out to Andrew for handling all that signage and that vinyl. And that's my part.
Thank you, Mr. Wozniak. And that concludes our information report.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fabrice-Mills. We can continue now with a construction update.
Cantu? Ms. Cantu?
Yes.
Are we not going to ask questions about the return to
Oh,
person?
yes, absolutely. Do we have any questions on the asynchronous?
I do.
Go ahead.
So my first question is, I understand things have been changing and changing rapidly, but I thought when we had talked about coming back in October, which I absolutely understand that we need to make our campus available to some students, I thought that we were going to do that in a more phased in approach where we would be having about 25% of students back, at least initially. And now it sounds like we're skipping that 25% and going straight to 50%. Is that correct, and why?
So we're starting with the amount of numbers for the families that would like their students to return to school. Even if we said 25%, if additional families wanted to bring their children to school because they needed to, we would still need to accommodate them.
I mean, I understand we want to accommodate them, but that's a decision that we're making as a district. That's not a TA rule.
TA says we would need to accommodate the students and families that need to come back to school.
Eventually, but not in the first 4-week period, because other
during that transition, the additional 4 weeks.
Other districts are bringing back 25%, and then, like I know some districts are moving up to, we've been in 25% for the last week or so, are now moving to 50%. So, but we're deciding to just go straight to 50%.
Based on the information that we've collected, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so then I know that we'd also talked about, and again, I understand things are changing and that's necessary, that when we got to this place where we'd be bringing students back, that the original thought, my understanding was that the school day would look in person much like it has looked by remote for the last couple of weeks. But now my understanding from Mr. Cardona is that we've changed that, and that so that students would be doing like academics and such in the morning, and then if they needed to leave campus, they could leave campus, or if they needed to be on campus for supervisory reasons, they could do tutoring, or they could do extracurriculars, or any number of other things. But I understand that we've changed that model now, and we're moving to the full bell schedule. And so I don't understand what that will look like, either for students who are in person. Will they be, I know like at Hayes, they've had kids who needed to be back on campus for the last couple of weeks have sort of been parked in a gymnasium or parked in a classroom, and they are doing online instruction in that classroom, and their teacher may or may not be in that room with them. So are we going to be doing that on campus? And then what will it look like for every level back on campus? And also then what will it look like for our remote learners who are participating with the classes, right? I just don't see it.
So in a minute, I'll ask some of our leaders to explain that, but for the way the instruction will work on campus and remote, once we transition back to on campus, we still have to attain the 75,600 minutes, right? And so the schedules are going to be your traditional school day hours, but embedded during that time, you'll still have the intervention for all of the students. So I think you're thinking that it's going to be period by period by period, but for example, in a minute, I'll turn it over to Ms. Presley. What they're doing is they have like 4 different lunch periods, and in those lunch periods are opportunities for a 45-minute flex where students will go and they'll receive their tutoring while another group is having lunch, right? So we can reduce the number of students in the cafeteria. Ms. Presley, do you want to explain that plan?
Yes, ma'am. So we'll have a couple, I think I want to make sure I understand your question, Trustee Halsey. So one is, what will that look like for our remote students? Is that?
I mean, if I'm a student showing up at San Marcos High School on October 5th, what does it look like for me? And then if I am a student who is not showing up on campus on the 5th, what will it look for me at home, like online? I don't understand what either of the scenario. I understand what the last 2 weeks have looked like, but I don't understand what it looks like in October when we have a cohort on campus and another cohort by remote, and how those two cohorts work together, and also how they're working through their respective days in those places.
Right. Okay. So so we have a phase-in model where we will, the first week or so, we will keep the first week or two, keep students in pods and throughout the day. So it'll be remote learning and on campus. That is only temporary because we also want to spend time teaching the new way that we move through the building. So these stairs are only for going upstairs, and this group of stairs are only for going downstairs. So there are some changes that students are going to have to, we have to teach, and then we'll gradually release our students to move about the building. And so they practice, and then we come back and like learn a new way of being on campus. So as far as instruction is concerned, we'll have, someone mentioned it earlier, we talked about the teacher will be teaching in the classroom and also have students at home who are tuned into their classes. Our instructional team is working to pull together and so we want so like you heard Dr. Ruiz Mills say, we can embed classes, we can embed lessons in Canvas from Adjourn. So if I'm a student at home, I may spend 30 minutes watching a video or online remote instruction from Adjourn, and then come in during that class period, because remember, we're on a 90-minute class period. And so we come in during that class period, and I have my teacher there who's available to answer questions. What we'll ask our teachers to do is just schedule your time and chunk your time. So if I have 45 minutes that I'm giving live instruction to the students that are in front of me, I might have a student who's at home either tuning into my live instruction or watching a video that I've prepared ahead of time. And then at the 45-minute break, that's when we're going to have questions, working opportunities, etc. So it'll vary from class to class. It really just depends on what the teacher thinks is most appropriate for the moment. But we do have an instructional team that's working with our staff to get them ready.
But students who are on campus, even if they're in pods for the first 2 weeks, will still follow the regular bell schedule.
Yes, students who are on, yes.
Okay, so my students will not be on campus. So will they, whereas they've been doing, sort of the 4 classes a day in the morning, early afternoon, will their whole day become expanded to 8 hours? I mean, we're not going to ask kids to be on Zoom for 8 hours, I'm sure.
Right. No, we're not asking kids to be on for 8 hours, and their day will expand. So because your teacher will be available 1st, 3rd, and then 5th and 7th in the afternoon. What'll happen if I'm at home, I might have an hour where I'm logging in and I'm asking my teacher for questions. Asking my teacher for support, asking questions, getting that face-to-face interaction, and then I shut down, and then my next hour will be with my next period teacher. They're not expected to stay logged in 90 minutes, and of course that may vary from day to day, depending on what the teacher has for them to, the type of instruction or what they have planned. And then there's a 90-minute break in the middle of the day where on campus, we're rotating kids through lunch, we're rotating them through a flex period where they have tutoring, they have SEL lessons. If I'm at home, that 90 minutes is mine. And so I can use that. I can use that for tutor.com, which Europe was just talking about. I can use that to perhaps connect with one of my teachers or log into one of the SEO lessons. I could use that for a brain break and to walk away from the screen. And then after that lunch period is over, let's just say 1 o'clock, because I don't have the bell schedule committed to memory. After that lunch period is over, then at 1 o'clock, I log back in, I have an hour of instruction, and then my last class will be, there's a 90-minute block. I may log in for an hour or 30 minutes, depending on what the need is. And then for that last period of the day, I'll log in again. So their day is expanded, and it's also broken up into small chunks.
Okay, that makes more sense. I can envision it. I can envision it working relatively easily at home where there's a lot of flexibility, which is great for a lot of people, but also I think I can see how it can start to work on campus. But I don't understand how it works for teachers if they're teaching every period of the day to different classes and teaching an in-person lesson and holding an in-person discussion, and also expected to create a video of the lesson that can be accessed asynchronously at a different time. How many hours? I think teachers are already working, triple overtime as far as I understand. So I just don't see how that can, what are the logistics of that? Are you splitting up between teachers?
It varies from department to department. I have some teachers that teach only one content area, and so we have an instructional team. They're interventionists on campus who are working with our instructional AP, and they are building different, I guess you would call it a menu of options for teachers to choose from. Trustee, it's a tough model, and I think it's definitely something that's doable, that we've reached out to other school districts and are pulling from some of the things that they're doing. So it is difficult. I also know that our instructional team that's working with Dr. Ruiz Mills, it has pulled, one, they've helped to rewrite the curriculum, and then two, they're pulling lessons from Edgenuity. So if I need to embed a lesson into Edgenuity, then that takes the pressure off of a teacher having to record, post something on Canvas, and then go in and teach, because those lessons are on Edgenuity are already pre-made, so to speak. I don't know the right term, but so we pull those lessons that align to the that they're, or the content that they're teaching in that moment. We embed that in Canvas, and so now if I'm at home, I have my student go in, log in, watch that video, do the work, answer questions, whatever the material is that aligns to it, and then there's a section of my 90-minute block that I am going to allow, just open up for Q&A, and whether that's someone on my screen or someone in my classroom, face to face, it wouldn't matter if we set clear timing and structure. So that's some of the work that we're doing with our teachers, is really helping them understand chunking their lessons, really helping them understand what it might take to flip a lesson, watch the video first, and then I use my hour or 45 minutes, whatever my block is for that day, to actually teach and answer questions.
Our secondary leaders have worked collaboratively and collectively with their faculty to come up with a similar type of back to school transition, as well as our elementary leaders working with our elementary teachers. So for example, we have a campus where the teachers in a grade level have determined who's going to be responsible for what content and what lesson, and so they're sharing those among the content. So this way it's not one teacher having to develop all of it for their particular homeroom class. And so they've been working on how they're going to support one another. The curriculum specialists, again, as Ms. Presley mentioned, are aligning for secondary the Edgenuity lessons, but they're also working with our teachers in developing those lessons and producing those lessons and the products for the video to be uploaded into Canvas. So there is a detailed plan, and we can get that to you if you'd like to see it. But again, it's going to be an iteration as we go through this model and really try to refine it so we can make sure A, that students are learning, and B, that we're not overtaxing our teachers as well. So really just doing what's best for the entire learning community.
Thanks. So I just have a couple follow-ups to that. Thank you. I have a sense of how it looks at the high school, I think. Is it going to look the same at the middle schools?
So it's going to be similar. Yes, ma'am. They're going to follow that type of a plan. They're meeting tomorrow. Our middle school principals are meeting tomorrow to discuss what that first phase would look like, as Ms. Presley spoke of, and then they'll have those same incremental blocks as well, because it'll be on that block scheduling.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to see the full plan, please. But then at the elementary school, did I understand you to say that some campuses would be doing it one way and some campuses would be doing it differently?
So we're still going to follow the model where the teachers would have in-person and remote students, but there's going to be a variation of that. So I can have, let's see, Mr. Greathouse, do you want to talk about your plan very briefly, please?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Cardona. Ms. Halsey, for instance, at Rodriguez, we were looking at a rotational schedule, meaning once we identified how many students were returning per grade level, in each grade level, we would divide those students within teachers' classrooms, within 2 teachers' classrooms. Most of our grade levels have 3 teachers per grade level. So we would divide those students within 2 classrooms, and one of those teachers would be identified as remote learning teacher. After about a week, we would rotate, not the students, but the teachers. The teachers would have an opportunity to rotate to online setting, teach the grade level online remote learners. All of those grade levels would be working within a PLC, so the content as far as equitable and pacing would be determined by the grade level, and that would be appropriate for each one of the students online as well as in person.
I mean, I think that it sounds impossibly hard to me. I mean, I understand that the challenge that we're faced with is impossibly hard, but also the idea of teaching in person and online as a teacher seems very, very challenging to me. I like the idea of being able to divide up responsibilities when possible, so that, you know, no one person is expected to do all of the things.
And Ms. Halsey, I just want to reiterate that there
Any
would
ways
not.
that we can do that to a greater extent, I would be in.
Ms. Halsey, I just wanted to reiterate that there would not be a teacher simultaneously doing online as well as in person.
Okay, and that's true at all the elementary schools? Because I would think that as difficult as it would be to teach in person and online at the high school or at the middle school, it'd be nearly impossible to do that at the lower grade levels.
Right. So Christina, you want to talk about your lower grade levels, what that would look like? Ms. Woody?
Hi. Hello. Hi. Okay. Sorry, got both of my kids asleep. You might hear my dog, but that would be the only thing you would hear. So just a heads up. But so yeah, for us, actually, I brought it to my teachers, and something that was really, we talked about it. We talked about how we might have 50% one 9 weeks, and the next week we could have 75. And so for them, it was more important to actually keep their 22 kids the whole year. So like half of them being remote and half of them being face-to-face, because those relationships are so important. Our schedule's actually not changing at all. So kids will still be able to Zoom at the normal time that they Zoom. The way that we're doing it is that, sorry, I just ran for my dog, that's why I'm reading like this. But, the way that we're doing it is actually during that station rotation and small group time, the kids who are remote will just, the kids that are remote will just meet with their teacher at that time. So they're not actually ever giving whole group instruction all at the same time where they're having to manage face-to-face and remote. That's just happening during that small group time where they're able to really focus that 20 to 30 minutes with those kids for each subject. And so we've managed to work it out that way. As far as the lessons that they're pre-filming or pre-recording, our goal is to every 2 weeks have either our assistant principal or our instructional specialist will actually go into that grade level and cover their classes for them that day and allow them to have that time to go and film their lessons. So those lessons will already be done for the 2 weeks. They then just focus on the actual live time that they're having with the remote kids and all of the face-to-face time that they have with their kids in their class.
I think that sounds great, right? It sounds great. I know for my children doing the distance learning, what's been very critical for them is to be able to convene in a live Zoom with their teacher and their classmates. You know, I think that that is in terms of their academic learning as well as in terms of their social emotional well-being, that being able to have those contact points, even if it's just once a day where they're in a more, you know, more socialized classroom, as it were. With the small group meeting that you're talking about, is that what you envision that they would
Yes, sorry, let me clarify. So it would be all the kids that are still remote, which would right now look like at our school, like 50%. So still those 10 kids that are with them would all still be in that Zoom together. So they could still socialize and engage with each other. And then as our morning meeting times, I know that's been crucial for our kids and our families and our teachers, just having that time to connect. That would be the only live time that would have all the kids in the class at the same time. So those Zoom kids would be able to engage with the kids in the morning meetings.
Okay, again, I think it sounds great, right? Also, I'm a parent of 3 kids, and I understand that a lot of schooling, especially at the younger grades, but that's not to say that it doesn't also come into play in the middle school and high schools, also involves, you know, behavior management and keeping kids on track and on focus. So again, it sounds great to split them up like that, right? But then that seems to me that you have a teacher who's giving a lesson to a group on Zoom, and who is making sure that the students who are in the room are on track?
Yes, so that's actually a practice we already do. In guided reading, our small group instruction, that already happens in our classrooms. So we're already meeting with those kids in small group while other kids are at stations or doing their independent work. So that's a practice that all of our teachers are already familiar with. And I think the thing that they liked the most about this plan is it's really already, it's just incorporating what we already do. Instead of guided reading with the kids live, we're just doing it remotely with that one group.
Okay, thank you. I mean, it obviously seems to me that we're going to have to continue offering everybody a lot of grace and a lot of patience and a lot of flexibility and a lot of willingness to accommodate in all sorts of different ways. And I understand that and I appreciate that. It is an impossible challenge that we're trying to get to overcome. My last question, I think, is back to Dr. Ruiz-Mills, and it's about with electives and with extracurriculars and such for students who are not coming to campus at both the elementary and the secondary levels. I know that we've made opportunities available for kids at the secondary level already with some electives and athletics. And are we going to be able to expand that? How will that look when they're back to a full day period? And also, can we expand that to the elementary school in any ways?
Yes, actually, we are providing some additional resources that Mr. Barton will speak of later on, but we have purchased some software for our electives to use because they didn't quite have that available. And then as we start going through this transition right? And we're following, like our choir at the high school has already started doing some of their sectional practices afterwards. As we see that continuing and progressing, then how do we bring that to the elementaries? How do we provide students that opportunity? So that is in discussion, especially for our campuses that, you know, do some of their larger performances at the end of the first semester.
So this scenario doesn't apply to me, but I'm wondering, I know I've got friends whose kids are playing football in middle school, but they're going to continue with remote learning. So how does that look?
So they'll be able to continue with that. I would need to get with Coach Walsh to discuss if transportation is available for something like that. But we felt it was important to allow students continue their participation in extracurriculars, whether they were on campus or in remote instruction.
I appreciate that. And I know that we've been transporting for a number of activities, and I really appreciate that also, because I think that, you know, as we discussed earlier, the options for kids right now are very few. And so many of those extracurricular activities are really, you know, lifelines for kids and what keep kids engaged in learning and keep them healthy. And that's obviously everybody's goal, right? Is to be as safe as possible while keeping everybody as engaged in learning and moving forward. So any ways that we're able to accommodate that for as many kids as possible, I appreciate. And I also appreciate y'all continuing to just make sure that, you know, the safety of our staff and our teachers and our students is our first consideration. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Redondo, do you have a quick question?
I will try and be quick, Ms. Cantu. Yes.
Thank you.
So it is evident that the instructional coaches, our campus leaders, and ISD staff have put a lot of thought and deliberation into the reopening plan in regards to delivery of instruction. But with all of that being said, and I don't know a better way to put this except, has there been like a dress rehearsal for this where we've had teachers or administrators go through a day and say, you know, I'm going to teach a cohort of online, at the same time teach a group of students in person, and provide a video beforehand and, you know, chunking my time across the day? Again, I understand like sitting down in a think tank type situation and writing it down on paper, but have we seen this in our school system, not hearing what others have done? Have we like reenacted what this is supposed to look like to make sure that it's actually achievable thus far at all grade levels, at all campuses? And that's, I guess, a question for everybody who needs to answer that.
Remember, just as a reminder, we tried to do this with professional development, and it created such a storm that we had to pull back on what was happening. So we're now really at the point of bringing back our staff members to start working on this plan that you're talking about, because I do think it's going to take our teachers working with us to think through this. And I heard Trustee Halsey mention, you know, all the difficulties. That's another reason why, you know, if you don't have an ADA accommodation, why it's critically important for us to start bringing teachers into the building, because you can tell already that we're going to have to redeploy on a daily basis our instructional coaches, our educational technology specialists, our instructional technology specialists, to help cover classes while teachers try and figure this out as we're moving. But we're at where we should have been at 3 weeks ago. So as you think about that, we're just going to continue to iterate, because, you know, Ms. Halsey mentioned something I said earlier. I said, I don't get it. Like, I initially told cabinet members and the principals, I don't know how teachers are going to do both. So, and then it came back, you know, when the principals started meeting with their campuses, that they actually wanted to do both. And it kind of took me off guard. It kind of shocked me. I was like, okay, let the campuses figure out, you know, what it is that they're going to do. But I think this first 2 weeks, like starting October 5th, as we get some kids in, I think we're going to have to be, as Ms. Halsey said, extremely patient and iterate a lot, and be okay with making mistakes. And you know, trying to adjust and being safe and making sure that we take all precautions. I think she has seen, you know, athletics take those same precautions, and I think that's the same level of professionalism that I think the campuses will kind of employ once we get everybody in. But yeah, no, it's going to be a lot of changing. I think this first semester, honestly, will be a lot of iterating as we go to make sure we take care of our teachers and our kids and start moving forward. I don't know if that answered your question, but hopefully it did.
Is that it for the questions?
One last question, Ms. Cantu. So I know the ISD did a lot of promotion around peer edge and, you know, supporting, you know, our teachers and staff's emotional well-being and wellness. Can you explain to me, Mr. Superintendent, Deputy Superintendent Ruiz Mills, or whoever, what that looks like currently for ISD staff and employees, and what it will look like once we reopen our schools for in-person instruction? What supports are there for ISD staff?
So I'm looking to see if Ms. Chapman Mustafa is on, so she can also assist with this question. It's going to go back to the teacher self-care that we brought to the district 3 years ago, so we can work on those strategies as well. And then I know Ms. Chapman Mustafa has been holding sessions or making sessions available for students, but also our district has an employee assistance program. So if teachers aren't able to get that social emotional support here on campus, we do offer an employee assistance program where they are able to have access to that social emotional learning support outside from an out of district provider as well. Ms. Chapman?
Yes, so good evening, Board of Trustees and Superintendent Cardona. So exactly what Dr. Ruiz Mills stated, we offered at the beginning of the year, we did Pure Edge for all of our staff members. So we offered an hour-long session, and our goal is to continue that throughout the year so that they can still have opportunities to access self-care tools and techniques. And then all of our counselors monthly are offering PD sessions to build our teacher capacity for SEL support, because we know that it's super important for our adults to have those skills to then be able to support our students. And so every month they're offering a PD session for teachers, and then also including strategies for those teachers to be able to use for kids, but then also really wanting to make sure that we're taking care of our teachers. So our Pure Edge is one of our greatest supporters of our district, and being able to think through breathing activities for our teachers. And then also just regular emails to teachers on how to make sure you're taking care of yourself. So for example, sending out a Wellness Wednesday email to teachers to say, hey, these are some techniques that you can take advantage of on Wednesday in order to take care of yourself. And as Dr. Reese-Mills stated, EAP is another great example. And so we make sure that every time that we present, we add that little nugget of make sure that you reach out to EAP, because it's a service that we provide for staff as well. Oops.
Thank you. Are there any further questions so that we can move on? Mr. Cardona, do you have someone for a construction update?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Sandoval, I believe, is on.
Good evening, Board President Cantu, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Cardona, Mr. Sandoval. I will be presenting the construction update again this month. I'd also like to introduce David Perez Menendez, who is project manager with Weber Commercial. He's, as y'all know, Weber is the contractor on the Miller Middle School project. Appreciate his attendance this evening to answer any questions that y'all might have regarding that project specifically. Next slide, Andrew. What I'd like to do is talk about the budget first. It's pretty much in line with previous months. We did see a reduction in the overall savings, just under 100,000 versus last month. But as we've seen throughout the months, these numbers continue to fluctuate as we close out projects. We expect to be closing out the elementary renovations project over the next 30 to 45 days. We'll probably be talking about it at the next board meeting, presenting that to y'all, to the board to get the final closeout. For the most part, aside from some fencing projects that we have going on at the high school and at Crockett Middle School or at Crockett Elementary, the Goodnight project has been completed. And then we're finishing up just some small items over at the high school. Really the focus is on Miller and De Zavala. Those are the two projects that we that are the most pressing, obviously, and the biggest projects for the district right now. So let's talk about the Miller project. Andrew, if you can go one more. What we're going to talk about is over the last 30 days, what we've done. As you all recall, the Miller Middle School renovation was a lot of remodeling work in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade wings, down the main hallways, roofing, and as if you've gone by there, you've seen a lot of activity on the outside. The items that have been completed over the last 30 days, we've got the 6th grade hallway done. We've got the main hallways, including the ACL science labs. We did get issued a temporary certificate of occupancy on 9/8. Some of the new areas, the underground plumbing, which is going to be the new entry, we refer to as Area D. We've got that set, and then the rebar, which was inspected and approved. Some of the items in the next 30 days, we continue to work the punch list items for phase 2, which is the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. All that work is done in the evenings or on weekends as to not disturb some of the teachers' activity that are going on throughout the day. We'll be setting some mill work in the science labs, which will give us full access to those labs. We've been working a lot on the access for student drop-off in the temporary office. We've worked with the school staff. We continue to work with them. We work with transportation, and we work with Weber. And we plan to have that finalized this week on how we're going to safely get students in due to the amount of construction and just utilizing the resources we have. That's, like I said, that we have been working on this for weeks, and we plan to have that final plan so we can communicate to families on drop-off, pickup procedures. We've got the bus fleet down. We've got that worked out, but visitors to the school, those are some of the things that we'll nail down this week. The other issues, the other things that will happen in the next 30 days, obviously, we're going to be finished framing in Area F, which is the new band hall. It's on the south side of the campus. They will be pouring Area D, which is the new admin area, and then we'll start with the steel erection in Area D over the next 30 days. If you go to the next slide, Andrew, if you look at the project schedule, and I've sort of broke it out. I know that y'all have seen this slide before, and it just sort of listed the dates, but I wanted y'all to get a good understanding of what exactly is going on in those phases. As you can see, we have finished phase 2, and phase 1 and phase 2 started at the same time, but obviously phase 1 was a lot of the stuff that was going on the outside. You can see the dates. The next big date for the Miller renovation will be April 2nd, when we'll be transitioning into the new band hall, new admin, the library, fine arts, and then phase 3A and 3B, which will be completed over next summer. We're trying to identify ways, working with Weber on obviously having little to no impact on faculty and students, but really identifying ways to get ahead of the schedule. We've looked at, the Thanksgiving break, the Christmas break, spring break next year, and we're really doing a better job of looking ahead and looking for ways that we can get work done, once again, with no disruption to students or faculty. Before I move on to the next slide, Mr. Bettis, you want to add anything on the schedule or what you're seeing with?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Bernie, for the introduction. No, I think you cover everything. Just to say that this project, the most challenging thing is all the phasing, and we think we do have a good plan to address it. So no, I think you cover everything.
I guess before you move on from Miller, I have a couple questions.
Okay.
So right now, are the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade wings, I guess you've collectively referenced those as phase 2. They're ready for students today?
Yes.
Okay. And are both gyms and the old band hall, choir area, and cafeteria also ready for students today?
Yes.
Okay. And without your finalized plan, where do you approximate students will enter the building?
So there's a couple of things that we're looking at, John. One is having students get dropped off on the corner right there at the last entry into the school on Foxtel, and making their way to whatever wing they need to be in, either 6th, 7th, or 8th grade wings. That's one plan.
That's I guess the back of the building. Is that a fair way to reference it? It's furthest from Hunter Road?
Right, the north side of the building, yes.
Okay.
The other option is have them turn into the parking lot, and once again, constructing some kind of catwalk or sidewalk to allow them to access the 6th grade hallway further up where there's a lot of construction, or once again, using the north side of the building and having them go down the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade wings.
And so much of that parking lot appears inaccessible to both vehicular and bus traffic, simultaneously. So it does seem like you'd have to drop off there. I mean, y'all will figure it out. But on Foxtail, and do we have to run that by the city? Is it okay if we just take up that whole road at a drop off window? Or
the way I understand it, John, is, and I think it happened last year, or not last year, but during normal school hours without construction. I think at pickup time, there might be a line of cars waiting to pick up. There's better traffic flow. We've got obviously the campus security that's going to help control that. So the way it looks today, it's not going to look that way if we decide to use that area come October 5th. The bus loop is already, that's not an issue. We're going to have that lane set up for buses for drop off and pickup. So in answer to your question, whatever plan we develop, we'll make sure that we get everybody to sign off on it and say that it's okay to implement.
Okay. And as to Weber, have you revised the final delivery date that we understood at the time the contract is entered, or are you still on pace for the delivery date we had conceived of in the contract?
No, we revise the delivery date every 2 weeks or every month. We revise our schedule, so we are still on the same situation. We are going to deliver the project as the contract says.
On August 31st of next year?
That is correct.
Okay. Those are the questions I have. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone have a question?
I'm sorry. Any other questions?
Ms. Cantu?
No. Mr. Adedonda, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Sandoval, this question is possibly directed towards you, but I think Mr. Wozniak might have some insider information as well, just as a preface. So we had been told throughout the summer, and this was, I think, just across the district, that we had several contractors whose employees, laborers, contracted COVID-19, and so they were having issues fulfilling some obligations, and I understand that. When we reopen our schools for in-person instruction, can you explain to me what safety protocols are being taken for third-party contractors that are not ISD employees and ensuring that they're screening and not coming to site? Or can you just explain how that interaction is taking place or not taking place, or whatever's happening there?
I think it'd be helpful if Mr. Perez comments on what they go through each day with their subs that show up on
Exactly.
on location.
So yeah, Weber, in a daily basis, what we do is we check the temperature of every employee every morning at 6:30, between 6:30 and 7 a.m. So we make sure there is no COVID symptoms in our employees. If we do have any, we tell this guy or this person just to go home, stay at home and do the test. We cannot obligate him, but we recommend him to do the test. And we also inform their company that there is a potential COVID situation. So when the school is going to start on October 5th, there is not going to be any how can I say this? There is not going to be any employee from the construction sharing any space with the school staff or students. If we do have to do something, I don't know, for example, in phase 2 for punch list, this is going to happen, like we said before, in the evenings or during the weekends. So at this point, we are not going to share any of our employees with anybody from the district.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions regarding Miller? I just some photos that I wanted to share. That's the main hallway. That's the old photo in the new hallway. A couple of notes on that. The north side of that, or the hallway to the left, is all the labs, science labs, ACL. That's all new or remodeled. The flooring has yet to be done, and then the wall to your right is the south side, and that's going to be done next summer. So we've got access to that. Obviously, if you walk down the hall today, you're going to see some fresh paint on the left and maybe some not so fresh on the right. But just so you know, that'll be done. That complete hallway is to be done next summer. The next slide, Andrew, is a shot from the parking lot nearest the football stadium. That is the new band hall. August, y'all shared this picture with y'all. Area F, the framing that was done, and then as of last week, you can see the enclosure. There's a lot of framing that's going on inside the band hall. We'll start with electrical in the next couple of weeks, and that'll be taking shape here pretty quick. The last photo I'll share with you is a shot back in July of the new admin and library. And then as of September, as of last week, off to the left of that structure right there is where the slab will be poured this week. You'll see the steel being erected, and that'll be the new entry. That's a shot of the new library, and then off to the left of that will be the new entry. And then once again, when we lay that slab this week, it's going to tie the band hall with the new entry with the library all together, which will be the front of Miller Middle School. Going on to the next, of the De Zavala. Once again, like Miller, a remodeling of classrooms, the main hallway. Some of the things that we got done over the last 30 days, if you go to the next slide, Andrew, we've got a substantial completion letter for phase 2. We got approved for a fire watch through October 5th before students return. Finishing the art, music, and ACL rooms, which are off the main highway. We set some electrical transformers in a courtyard, which was key for the power for the new area. A fire sprinkler, and I'll talk about that here in a second in the gym area. But we've got steel erection in the new admin area, the new entry, and we were able to build out the concrete sidewalks that lead from the campus down to the street. Some items in the next 30 days, we'll continue to frame and do electrical and the new admin and the entry. We're going to do some continued work on the fire riser for the fire sprinkler system. And then much like Miller, we're developing a plan. Myself and the principal, Ms. Passmore, will be getting together this week, trying to determine the number of bus riders versus parent pickup drop-off, because there might be, one of the plans might be to switch where the bus students get dropped off with where the parents pick up and drop off. So we're trying to get count on bus riders, and we'll make that determination this week. Once again, as minimal impact to students and students and teachers as possible. The next the next slide is obviously the schedule. Once again, I sort of laid out what each phase consisted of. The next key date for Days of Allah is going to be right around Thanksgiving of this year, when the new admin will be ready for occupancy, and then also the new entry for students and other visitors, staff to enter the school. What I was going to say about and that's a shot of the new entry, and back in August, and then you can see the still erection last week at Days of Allah. So what I was going to say earlier is that, you know, one thing that we've learned over this past summer is really construction in the summer slows down, believe it or not. Yeah, we had some unforeseen issues. We had, you know, COVID impact, lead time on material. So one thing that we've learned is we've got to do a better job and look for opportunities to get in and get some work done when we have the opportunity to do it. And working with Mr. Perez and working with Bartlett Cock at Days of Allah, we've been able to do that. And that's something that we talk about every Wednesday in our meetings. And I mentioned the fire sprinkler system. That was in the gym at Days of Allah. That was a phase 1 that was not supposed to be done until November, but with students out on campus, we had the opportunity to go get that done. So that's just something else we're able to check off. And it's things like that I've challenged Weber and Bartlett that we need to really try to get done, so we're not running up against like last summer at Rodriguez, and then, you know, this summer with these two projects where we're struggling right there the last hour to get it ready. But we've got both campuses ready for students. It's not, you know, it's like I've told both principals at Miller and Days of Allah, your campus is under construction. We've got to accept that. But what we're trying to do is make it as convenient as we can for students and faculty. So, any questions from anybody? That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandoval. We appreciate the report. We're ready to move into our consent items.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
I second. Ms. Hanson seconds. Mr. McLaughlin makes the motion to approve the consent items. Ms. Hanson seconds. All in favor?
Sorry, Ms. Cantu?
Yes.
Since we're on video, could somebody just explain to anybody who might be watching what the consent items are?
Approval of minutes for regularly scheduled board meeting on August 17th. HR workshop held on August 24th. A special call board meeting on September 14th. That is what we are voting on. So if I could hear individually from everyone, since, let me see if I can get it all on the gallery. We could just raise our hands here. Okay, I see 6 hands. Thank you. The next item for action, consider approval of budget amendments. Mr. Barton, were you going to talk to us?
Yes, ma'am. Board President Cantu and trustees, on page 48 of your board book, you have our budget amendments. They are revenue neutral, and they are both due to COVID. The first, we had a contract with communities and schools for this next year, but we were not certain about how that would begin. So we kept the money in 11, our instructional function, until we were sure we would have that contract this fall. They're ready to begin, so we need to move that money into social work services to pay that contract. And then for our fine arts, Dr. Ruiz Mills mentioned earlier this evening, we're going to have some adjustments for our electives so that they have the appropriate instructional materials for students who are learning remotely. Again, that's just moving money that was dedicated to travel and competition into innovative instructional.
Do I hear a
I'll
motion?
move that we adopt these two budget amendments.
I second. Mr. McLaughlin made the motion. Ms. Hanson seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. I see 6 hands. Thank you. The next item for action, consider approval of budget amendments. Mr. McLaughlin makes the motion to approve the consent items. Ms. Hanson seconds. All in favor, raise your hand. I see 6 hands. Thank you. 6 hands. Thank you. The next item for action, consider approval of budget amendments. Mr. McLaughlin makes the motion to approve the consent items. Ms. Hanson seconds. All in favor, raise your hand. I see 6 hands. Thank you. Consider approval of resolution regarding extracurricular status of 4-H organization and approval of adjunct faculty.
That will be Mr.
Going to talk to us about this?
That will be Mike Doyle.
Good evening, board. This is Mike Doyle. Yes, this resolution comes to us every year from the 4-H, Hays County 4-H Extension Office. Like in years past, is the resolution asking that the 4-H, Hays County 4-H be sanctioned as an extracurricular activity, thus allowing students who do have 4-H activities be considered in attendance, if you will, while at those activities while they're off campus. It also calls for the county extension agents, Jason Mangold and Kate Blankenship, to be considered adjunct staff, so that way they do comply with 19 TAC 129.21. That's code for through the State Board of Education.
Move that we approve this resolution.
No, second.
Any questions? All in favor, raise your hands, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Thank you. 6. Consideration and possible action on the ranking of offerors that submitted proposals for the delinquent tax attorney and delegation of authority to the superintendent or his designee to negotiate a contract with the top ranked of offeror.
Yes, ma'am. Last year, we were asked to look at our professional services. Some of those relationships go back quite some time. And so we committed to routinely reevaluating those, starting with the oldest. And we were starting that process early this year. The delinquent tax attorney is a service that we use yearly. And so we're bringing to you our rankings for your approval.
Ms. Ripondo, did you have a question or did you want to make the motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the highest ranking company and delegate authority to the superintendent or his delegate to negotiate the contract with top ranked. Oh, well, that says it, top ranked proposal.
A second.
Ms. Hanson, Ms. Villaponte makes the motion. Ms. Hanson seconds. All in favor, raise your hand, please. 6 hands are up. 5 hands.
I'm going to abstain, President Cantu.
Mr. McLaughlin abstains. So it's 5 and 1 abstention. Consider resolution to participate in joint election with Guadalupe County to be held on November 3rd.
Earlier, we submitted our election contract with Guadalupe County. That was our contract with them. Now that they have all the different entities that they're going to be serving, they're putting together a joint election contract. There's a lot of redundancy there, but that's the process right now. There's no changes here, and we're lagging about a month because of the extended early voting. They wanted to secure all their sites and workers before they put it on paper.
Move that we approve this resolution.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Villaponte seconds. Discussion or questions? All in favor, show your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed, 0. Consider approval of student code of conduct updates.
Yes, that will be Ms. Pearson.
Good evening, everyone. President Cantu and school board members, Mr. Cardona. If you'll recall, in September board meeting, I presented the updates for the student code of conduct, and there was some conversation about the requirement to keep the camera on for the live Zoom session. So we have aligned that to our emergent tree, be safe, respectful, and responsible, and reworded that to say it is, you have a copy of it in the board book, and it says students should show engagement and participate in live Zoom sessions by asking questions, answering posed questions, and interacting actively with the session in a respectful, safe, and responsible manner. And the teachers have all moved forward with Obviously encouraging students to have the camera on, but there is no negative consequence if they, as long as they're engaging and using the chat feature and answering questions. And it's a way to also for us to make sure that the students are just engaged. The rest of the document stayed the same, other than bullet 3. We did match the TA wording exactly on the face coverings, that the requirement is for all grade levels must include non-medical and medical grade disposable face masks and cloth face coverings over the mouth and nose. Full face shields may be used in place of a mask to protect eyes, nose, and mouth whenever a mask is not feasible, or whenever the education context may benefit from the ability to see an individual's full face. And then also noted that the district makes available virtual instruction, which allows the students to remain at home and receive instruction in a contactless manner. And the rest of it remained the same. The student code of conduct did not have any updates from legislature. It stayed the same, and there was no recommendations other than from our attorney to make sure that we did include something for the COVID remote learning expectations. Any questions?
Any questions? Mr. Arredondo, you said you had a question?
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. Ms. Pearson, first and foremost, thank you so much for being cognizant by the comments made by not only myself, but my colleagues at a previous board meeting. I, again, continue to have some concerns just based on some anecdotal information provided by some parents about how teachers are communicating with children about participating on video. And so I don't know what that direction or what that guidance looks like from a central administration level down to a campus and a classroom level, but I'd be very curious to be provided that. What guidance or what in writing or policy or procedure are we encouraging or communicating with teachers and staff of how to navigate that? Because to be brutally honest with you, I've heard that some teachers have been a little bit more forceful about turning on the camera during instruction. And again, I think there's a laundry list of reasons why that's problematic, right? But again, and along with all the other things I've requested, if I can see what kind of guidance is coming from your office or from teaching, learning, and instruction, that would be greatly appreciated. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I can assure you that the social emotional component is discussed intensively with our principals and with our teachers. And it's a team effort with all of us, making sure that we are taking care of our students. Thank you.
Okay, we're ready for a motion on that.
I move that we approve the student code of conduct updates.
Second.
I'll second. Oh, Ms. Yapando seconds. Ms. Hanson made the motion, Ms. Yapando seconds. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed, 0. Consider approval of the Reading Academy blended facilitator part-time position.
That will be Nicole Dre.
Nicole Dre?
Yes. Good evening, Board of Trustees and Superintendent Cardona. On page 62 of your board book, you have the item for action to consider approval of the part-time blended facilitator position. House Bill 3 requires that all K-3 teachers and administrators complete the new TEA reading academies, including the science of reading, by the end of the 22-23 school year, and requires that a TEA-trained facilitator delivers the training and acts as a liaison between the district and TEA. TEA is allowing districts to choose a blended pathway, which is the pathway we have chosen. This is a fully virtual offering, and this year we will be inviting no more than 60 participants beginning in October. Funds for this position were included in the budget that you approved in June. Those funds are encumbered in the 2021 early literacy allotment. There is a chance we will contract this position. However, at this time, We are recommending that the board approves the blended facilitator position as a half-time position for this school year as we navigate getting this started.
Ms. Villalpando?
I would like to move unless somebody else has some more discussion.
Any questions or discussion? Mr. Arredondo?
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. Ms. Dre, are you confident that as it's currently, or I guess as it's soon to be posted as a half-time position, that the ISD will get an applicant that meets the expectations of where we are as a school district?
Yes, there are very few people that have the credentials to do this. However, we do have people in mind.
Thank you.
Ms. Villalpando made the motion. Do I hear a second?
Me. I second.
Ms. Hanson seconds the motion. All in favor? 6, opposed 0. Discussion and possible action regarding temporary pay increase for all hourly employees in the amount of $2 per hour effective September 31, 2020 until discontinued by the Board of Trustees.
Ms. Cantu? Ms. Cantu?
Yes, Mr. Arredondo?
Thank you. I would like to make a motion that we approve this agenda item as written, with the slight modification that it reflect October 1st, 2020.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Arredondo, seconded by Ms. Halsey. We're now open for discussion. Ms. Villalpando?
I would like more discussion on it, and how is this, what's the total that's gonna impact our budget? That's.
I'm sorry, what was your question? What was the total?
Well, I'd like more discussion on it because I'd like to know more about how it's gonna impact the budget.
Okay, so were you asking that of administration?
Yes, please.
Okay, Mr. Barton?
Yes, ma'am.
Or Mr. Cardona?
Trustee Villalpando, we estimate it'll be $140,000 a month additional in payroll for our hourly employees to implement this. However, that's not the biggest challenge that we've encountered in the last 2 weeks as we work to determine how we could implement it. One of the most serious challenges is we annualize the salaries for our hourly employees so that they get a consistent check on months with fewer days, such as November and December, and also through the summer. If you imagine the $2 additional is paying for hours that they'll actually receive pay for later. It doesn't all work out to be in the same month, and that's simply not functional with our system. To be honest, we've had to go all the way to our payroll vendor, the computer system, and we've had to talk to them, and there is no way for us just to add a $2 multiplier on to this one. And I appreciate the third challenge was having an open-ended date, and fixing that is something, and I appreciate that. But right now, it's still inoperable for us. We cannot implement this as it's written with our current software.
That's exactly what I needed to know, how it was going to work with our system and overall, what the amount was going to be. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Hanson?
Yes, Mr. Barton, what's our current cash fund balance amount, please?
As everybody remembers, there's an ebb and flow to our fund balance, and we are coming out of the lowest point of our year. We're just now starting to collect property taxes, and we've just now brought in 2% of our projected revenue for next year. So we're climbing that hill. Right now, it's $14,656,432 on hand. And I know we see the general fund there as a fixed amount, but it really does ebb and flow at times.
And what is the amount we need for 3 months as required?
That would be 420,000.
In fund balance, we only need 420,000.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought you meant 3 months of this proposal.
No, sorry. I was like, whoa.
Whoa, right.
I believe it's about 18,000, but I'm off right now.
Okay, thank you. 18 million.
Ms. Halsey?
18 million, yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that there's a system in place and that there's a difficult request to that system. However, we just had a conversation about how we're asking our teachers to do what I think is nearly the impossible of teaching virtually and in person to large numbers of children at young age. So I don't understand why there's not some way to make this feasible. Like if we're not capable of cutting like a monthly check to people, a stipend that would be in addition. I mean, there's got to be some way that we are able to pay people additional hours, the people that we are depending on to run the school district as we start bringing students back.
I appreciate that sentiment, and I agree with you. There seems like there's always a way. But this one gets really complex. When you put in FLSA, Fair Labor Standards Act, overtime, TEA retirement, TRS retirement, it just becomes an intricate web, and we have not solved this. I don't want to tell you that we can do it. This is our payroll team. Our payroll clerks have been working hard on this for 2 months. And right now, I have to tell you honestly, we don't have an avenue to implement this.
So what if we did what you had recommended earlier several months ago, and instead of doing a hourly increase, do a stipend for employees? That would be feasible, correct?
I don't know what recommendation you're referring to. Usually stipends we avoid with our hourly employees. And again, that's because of a blended rate FLSA issue.
We had on the agenda the idea that we would be doing stipends for everybody instead of raises. That was the recommendation coming from administration several months ago. Perhaps my memory is faulty, but that's.
No, I
think when we were
a one-time pay, but not a stipend.
That's what I'm using the incorrect terminology then. I mean, a one-time pay. That's what I was thinking of as a stipend. So.
We talked about stipends back when we were giving raises.
Right. I'm conflating the two. That was my misunderstanding. But I'm saying like then we can do a one-time pay for those hourly employees, correct?
I certainly think that's more reasonable. And when we are able to see the outlines of that, we can work on how that would implement. But right now we can't do just a open-ended $2 an hour.
But couldn't we amend the motion to say that it was $16 a day?
Ms. Cantu.
Mr. Arredondo?
I appreciate Ms. Halsey's willingness to modify the agenda item as presented, and I will join you in a few moments, it looks like, if necessary. I guess my question for Mr. Barton and the Human Resources Department and Payroll is, we have a policy currently in the ISD that during our school closure, we authorized your department to provide time and a half for employees who are called in to work. So if our payroll system is incapable of temporary pay increases, then how is it feasible that several months ago we provided time and a half in the same unspecified amount of time for a very small subset of ISD employees?
We use the overtime function to do that. When we went into DEA local and the board passed that resolution, everybody stayed home. There was no overtime. So we used the overtime function. We actually had people swipe in, and that may not be the best approach, but that's the one we found in that crisis. And so the people who swiped in as overtime, and we recognized those hours when they came onto campus. But for the most part, Trustee Arredondo, our employees, our bus drivers, and our custodians, they were at home. We weren't having to touch very many employees to execute that and implement it. It was largely child nutrition. This would be 600 employees twice a month. And you have to be perfect, and there's a lot of implications to not, and that's why you have these systems in place. And our system is not set up to handle overtime plus a $2 multiplier. That isn't a function of it.
So a follow-up question to that is, do we know how many ISD employees in the most recent pay period qualified for overtime pay?
No, I don't know that off the top of my head. I'd have to look. I'll tell you, it's an unusual period right now because we don't have kids, and that's going to change here in the next few weeks really quickly.
Do we know if at least one employee worked who is an hourly employee worked over 40 hours and qualified for overtime?
I'm sure there is one.
Is there not a way to change the overtime formula to reflect $2 an hour instead, and it'd be all hourly employees? Is there no way to change that function or formula in the payroll system?
No, sir. It's a function of their hourly rate. And that goes back to FLSA, and that just has a lot of implications. You have to be perfect with it.
Okay.
Any other questions? We'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion, which is paying $2 per hour, effective October 1st until discontinued by the Board of Trustees. All in favor, raise your hands. 2, all opposed? 4. The last item, discussion and appointment of 2 San Marcos CISD representatives to the Core 4 Task Force. Now, Ms. Halsey has volunteered to serve on this. Is there any other board member that's willing to put in the time that this commission requires? The Core 4 Task Force?
Ms. Cantu?
Yes, Mr. Arredondo.
If you're interested in serving, I would like to nominate you to serve alongside Ms. Halsey. I know you've participated in these with the current mayor and city administration at various levels and instances and in various settings. So why fix something that isn't broken and continue you and Ms. Halsey's service in that capacity?
I did not serve on the commission that Ms. Halsey was on. I would be happy to do it, but I had thought if we had at least one board member, then we could probably get one administrative or school district person. Could I have some discussion on that, please?
I think that would make some sense because, I mean, unless we get to send a designated admin along with our voting members, because we don't always know some of the barriers that one idea might cause. So yeah, I would support having an administrator there, whoever the superintendent designates. But I don't know if that's how the city's gonna do it. When we went before, I served on this, I guess, the last 12 months or whatever. And when the city council had 2 council members, and then the city manager and several people from the city were there as well. So I don't know that, I definitely want some administrative cover, but I don't know that we're stopped from bringing, you know, an administration representative with the 2 designated by the board.
I think this commission was different, and I think Ms. Halsey can elaborate on that because she served on the commission before.
Yeah, I think, so this is a new convening of an old commission, and there's going to be a whole sort of reset, right? So the Core 4 will continue to exist with President Cantu and Mr. Cardona representing the district. And on this iteration of this new, what was the Commission on Children and Youth, the district will have 2 seats, the county has 2 seats, the university has 2 seats, and the city has 3 seats because they're providing more funding. And those seats are up to us how we want to fill them. But the initial tasks will be rewriting the bylaws, working with the youth services director who's just been hired to sort of figure out what the new direction is in terms of implementing the youth master plan as a partnership among the 4 of us. In the past couple of years, I've served as the board representative to the commission, and Nicole Dre has served as an administrative person, and I think that it's worked well actually to have an administrative voice there, because while I have perspectives on various things, I don't have perspectives necessarily that she has in terms of the depth and various other resources that are available throughout the district. So I think that that's worked well, and my advice based on my previous experience on this seems like we should continue that. But I think it's an opportunity to do something different if that's what we would like to do. So.
Yeah, I appreciate Mr. Arredondo considering nominating me, but I like the concept of a board member and an administrator. Ms. Hanson, you had your hand up?
Yes, I'd like to move that we approve Ms. Halsey and a designee from the district as approved by Mr. Cardona.
I'll second that motion.
Time for discussion, Ms. Cantu.
Yes.
So I agree with Ms. Halsey, and I understand the current makeup of the former commission, but I think a lot of times that in those meetings that I've attended, the default has been, well, that's a policy to be determined by the board at a future meeting or what have you. So that has kind of been the refrain of some of the staff in those meetings and in those settings. I guess currently as presented, and kind of referencing what Mr. McLaughlin said, is there no way that we can appoint 2 board members who actually have voting authority and in tandem to that say, hey, if our deputy superintendent or if our superintendent of schools or their designee is in tow, I highly doubt the city of San Marcos is going to restrict their participation or presence in those meetings, seeing as how those meetings are generally 100% of the time open to the public, right? I guess my concern is that if it were policy or budget or financing or whatever that looks like, staff would not be empowered, keeping in mind that board members are not allowed to speak for the board holistically either, but I think it'd be even more difficult if a budgetary matter came up for a staff member to commit either way on something that would possibly cost money, whereas 2 board members have the ability and are empowered to put something on the agenda for the board to take action. So that's kind of where I am. I think, you know, without further guidance from the city, I don't know why we would abdicate one of our seats to a staff member when I think they're going to be invited to attend, and I think that participation is going to be welcome. But if no one here, and Ms. Cantu included, doesn't feel or want to serve, then I would then self-nominate myself to be one of the 2 representatives from the ISD board.
I didn't say I wouldn't serve. I just said that I thought that we would have an administrator or a board member. And that's why I wanted to have this discussion. I don't mind serving on it with Ms. Halsey. So I think that if
you accept the nomination, then will withdraw mine, but I would like us to consider appointing 2 board members.
I don't think that's a bad idea in terms of the fact that we are, you know, reconsidering what this is going to look like. I don't think that there will be, at least at the outset, any monetary issues that would require additional representation from the board. But I think that in terms of figuring out programmatically and what the bylaws are going to look like, I don't think it's a bad idea to have 2 trustees with assistance, you know, some heavy lifting from administration in support. I don't know what the other entities are going to do, but it certainly seems possible that they would follow something similar. I have no opposition to that at all. I think there's going to be plenty of work to do, and anybody who is willing to do the work, I think would be great. So I'm happy to have Ms. Cantu or you, Mr. Arredondo, also, or Mr. McLaughlin, if he would like to join us, or Ms.
Just to kind of further elaborate, because it is a quasi-legislative body, I think continuity of an elected official who has been put into their position by the voters when it comes to a cross-jurisdictional entity such as this, again, I think there's more community buy-in, saying, you know, these representatives are put there by the people. So, and again, I think thinking of who's leading our city right now, that I don't think they would shut the door on an additional staff member or ISD representative. So.
No, I think that's a great point. And actually, one thing is that this group will determine who else gets to be there. So if we have 2 board members as our official designees, and we say we want to bring 3 SMCISD staff people with us, I think that we will have that prerogative. So.
Well, right now the motion, as Ms. Hanson stated, is for a representative from a designate from the superintendent, and one board member.
Well, I will be.
So did we have a second on that?
Yes.
Margie seconded it.
Who seconded?
Ms. Villapando.
Ms. Villapando seconded, okay.
So
we need to vote on that unless you're going to amend your motion.
No.
You're
So
ready to vote?
for this, if it fails 3-3, since Lupe isn't here, I will make a subsequent motion to appoint Ms. Cantu and Ms. Halsey.
Well, before we get there, I'm sorry. I did not realize this issue was tackling in the meeting. Sorry, Mr. Cardona. I'm sorry. We're talking about you and whether your staff would serve in this voting capacity on this body. Do you have a view on that? There's sometimes where you prefer I don't know, let's say this is political, but you prefer some of that be left to the trustees. Do you have a view on this?
I don't know too much about this new committee. I thought it was advisory in nature, even though it's elected officials, but I would venture to guess that, you know, we're going to be attending in some form or fashion. We had even talked about tying in members of the SHAC, because we imagine that socio-emotional supports for students and adults were going to be probably one of the charges of whatever comes out of this youth services position. So, for example, Ms. Pearson and Ms. Mustafa Chapman would probably be fairly consistent representatives, besides, you know, if myself or Ms. Ruiz-Mills, Dr. Ruiz-Mills couldn't be there. So, I mean, I get Mr. Adondo's. I think if it's elected officials, we're good with that, but we'll probably be there as well, just to support them.
Okay.
And my main interest in that was because it is dealing with social emotional, and having worked 20 years in counseling, it kind of gives me a background. So that was somewhat my interest. But if another board member wanted to serve, I didn't want to take somebody else's opportunity.
I'll just say that as I'm thinking this through, so the commission as it was much bigger than what this group will be. And so I don't think that there was ever an instance in the commission when a trustee was voting one way and therefore the administrative designee felt that they had to vote that same way. But it seems like in a smaller group, you could potentially have that feeling, right? So this is a good way sort of to make sure that we're being as transparent and deliberative and open and so I think it's a good idea.
So Mr. McLaughlin, are you comfortable with all the discussion we've had?
I know what I want to do.
Okay. We're ready for the vote. All in favor of the motion, which is to place one board member and one designee from the district, raise your hand.
I thought we were named, I'm sorry, I thought we named Ann.
And yes, to name Ann Halsey and one designate from the district, raise your hand.
Okay. That was a motion.
That was a motion. Okay, that's 2. All opposed? That's 4.
I make a
So
motion
now
that
we're
we
ready for
appoint
another
Ann.
motion.
May I make a motion to appoint Ann Halsey and President Cantu?
Second.
Moved and seconded to appoint Ann Halsey and Clem Cantu to this commission for the Core 4 Task Force. Any questions or discussion? All in favor of the motion? 5. Opposed? Opposed? 1. Thank you.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. Adjourn.
Second.
Yes. All in favor of adjourning, raise your hand. All opposed? Same sign. Thank you.
Good night, y'all.
Good night, y'all.
Good night. Good evening.
Good night, everybody.
Good job on the first 2 weeks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.